The leader of the majority party will move a motion on the general debate on the proposal to Parliament to consider amending the Constitution and the standing orders. That noting the contents of a memorandum submitted to Parliament by His Excellency the President, asking Parliament to consider initiating amendments to the Constitution, acknowledging that actualization of the proposals which relate to inter alia the composition of Parliament as provided for in Article 97 and 98 of the Constitution, in order to attain the two-thirds gender principle, the creation of the office of the Leader of Official Opposition in Parliament, and the inclusion of various funds in the Constitution would necessitate amendment to the Constitution, while the restructuring of parliamentary oversight to allow for cabinet secretaries to appear before the Houses of Parliament to respond to questions by members would require the amendment of standing orders. Further acknowledging that the Speaker, via a notification issued on 9th of December 2022, referred the matters raised in the memorandum to the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs with regard to proposals relating to the implementation of the two-thirds gender principle and the establishment of the office of the Leader of Official Opposition. The Joint Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee with regard to proposals to amend the Constitution to entrench the Constituency Development Fund, Senate Oversight and National Government Affirmative Action Funds, and the Procedure and House Rules Committee with regard to the proposals to amend the standing orders to strengthen parliamentary oversight of the executive so as to facilitate the public participation pursuant to Article 118 of the Constitution. Now, therefore, pursuant to the provisions of Article 1, subsection 2 and Article 95, subarticle 2 of the Constitution, this House notes, considers and makes general comments on the proposals contained in the memoranda by His Excellency the President. This debate has already begun and it will resume today. If you're just joining us, the business of the National Assembly is about to begin, and on your screen there is some activity. There is the mace, followed by the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, the Honorable Gladys Boss, who also doubles up as the County Woman Representative for the County of Uasin Gishu, the woman member of Parliament for Uasin Gishu. Let me now hand you over for this live broadcast.
Let us pray. Almighty God, who in your wisdom and goodness have appointed the offices of leaders and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of the people, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor us, your servants, whom you have been pleased to call to the performance of important trusts in this republic. Let your blessings descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Honorable members, I wish to introduce to you a delegation of members of the House Business Committee of the National Assembly of the Republic of Zambia who are seated in the Speaker's row. The delegation comprises of 1, the Right Honorable Nelly B.K. Muti, MP, Speaker and Leader of Delegation. 2, the Honorable Stanford Mulusa, MP, who's the Government Chief Whip. 3, the Honorable Brian Mundubile, MP and Leader of Opposition. 4, the Honorable Stephen Kabiongo, MP, Whip of the Patriotic Front Party. 5, the Honorable J.E. Banda, Member of Parliament and Whip for Independent Members of Parliament. 6, the Honorable Kampamba Mulenga, MP. 7, the Honorable Clement Andeleki, MP. And 8, the Honorable Roy Ngulumbe, who is the Acting Clerk of the National Assembly of Zambia. The delegation is also accompanied by 6 other staff members from the Office of the Clerk and the Executive. Honorable members, the delegation is in the country on a benchmarking visit to our Parliament, specifically to share best practices on planning, facilitation, and conduct of business of the House and the workings of committees generally. Honorable members, on behalf of the Speaker of the National Assembly and that of the entire House, I wish to welcome them to the National Assembly and wish them fruitful engagements during this stay in our country. Thank you, honorable members.
Order number 3, messages.
Honorable members, pursuant to Standing Order 41-1 of the National Assembly orders, I wish to convey a message from the Senate regarding the passage of the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 9 of 2023. The message conveys that on Thursday, 20th April 2023, the Senate considered and passed the said bill in the form passed by the National Assembly without amendments. Honorable members, you will recall that on Tuesday, 21st March 2023, the National Assembly considered and passed the said bill without amendments, following which I referred the bill to the Senate for consideration. The passage of the said bill, honorable members, by the Senate is the same form passed by the National Assembly, concludes the bicameral consideration of the bill in accordance with Article 110 of our Constitution. Honorable members, I will now proceed to present the bill to His Excellency the President for assent in accordance with the provisions of Article 110(5) of our Constitution. I think we can move on to the we can proceed. Chairperson, Select Committee on Decentralized Funds Accounts Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Tuesday, 25th April 2023. The report of the Decentralized Funds Accounts Committee on its consideration of the reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements for the National Government Constituencies Development Fund for 26 constituencies in the counties of Mombasa, Kilifi, Kwale, Taita Taveta, Lamu, and Tana River for the financial years 2013-2014, 2014-2015, and 2015-2016. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Chairperson for Departmental Committee on Social Protection, are you ready? Okay.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Tuesday, 25th April 2023. Report of the Departmental Committee on Social Protection on the ratification of 1. The Hague Convention on Civil Aspect of International Child Abduction. 2. The Hague Convention on Jurisdiction, Applicable Law, Recognition, Enforcement, and Cooperation in Aspect of Parental Responsibility and Measures for the Protection of a Child. And 3. The Hague Convention on International Recovery of Child Support and other forms of family maintenance. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
You may now give your notice of motion.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that this House adopt the report of the Departmental Committee on Social Protection on its consideration of ratification of the Hague Convention on Civil Aspect of International Child Abduction, the Hague Convention in Jurisdiction, Applicable Law, Recognition, Enforcement, Cooperation in Aspect of Parental Responsibility and Measures for the Protection of Child, and the Hague Convention on International Recovery of Child Support and other forms of family maintenance, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 3rd April 2023, and pursuant to the provision of Section 8.4 of the Treaty Making the Ratification Act 2012, approves the following Hague Convention: Civil Aspect of International Child Abduction, Jurisdiction, Application Law, Recognition, Enforcement, and comparable in respect to parental responsibility, measures for the protection of the child, and international recovery of child support and other forms of family matters. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Gideon Mulungi, Chairperson, Select Committee on Decentralized Funds.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that this House adopts the report of the Decentralized Funds Accounts Committee on the consideration of the reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements for the National Government Constituencies Development Fund for 26 constituencies in the counties of Mombasa, Kilifi, Kwale, Taita Taveta, Lamu, and Tana River for the financial years 2013-14, 2014-15, and 2015-16, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 25th April 2023. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Is this a notice of motion by the Honorable Owen Bayer, member for Kilifi North?
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I would like to move on a motion of adjournment on a definite matter of urgent national importance to discuss the mysterious killings in Shakahola, Kilifi County. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 33-1, I rise to seek leave for the adjournment of the House for the purposes of discussing a definite matter of urgent national importance regarding the mysterious killings of people in Shakahola in Kilifi County. Honorable Speaker, many lives have been lost in Shakahola, Kilifi County, as a result of the radical religious teachings by a controversial pastor named Pastor Paul Ndenge Mackenzie. It is reported that Pastor Ndenge Mackenzie, through his purportedly skewed radical religious teachings, has been manipulating and indoctrinating locals to undertake extended periods of fasting in order to meet Jesus. A number of these people are reported to have died in the process, including 2 children whose deaths in March 2023 were linked to the pastor. Shockingly, several bodies have also been discovered in what we suspect are to be secret graves used to bury starved followers of Pastor Paul Mackenzie on his 800-acre ranch in Shakahola. The bodies have since been exhumed by the authorities. Honorable Speaker, the pastor has been arrested twice, in 2019 and in March of this year, in relation to the deaths of children. However, he was released on bond and both cases are still pending through the courts. The residents of Kilifi County urged the court not to release him, decrying the spread of cults in other regions of the country, but their plea was not heeded. As a result, Honorable Speaker, over 93 bodies as of now, believed to be followers of followers who fasted to death, have been exhumed in his ranch as at today, Tuesday, 25th April 2023. Honorable Speaker, appreciating the freedom of worship, there is need for the government to enact laws and policies that prohibit and discourage unlawful practices that are not in line with conventional religious teachings and beliefs of a community in order to uphold the security of its citizens. Honorable Speaker, it is for this reason that I seek leave of the House for the adjournment of the House in order to deliberate on the matter so as to chart the way forward and propose possible lasting solutions. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Ntenge. Mackenzie Ntenge.
Mkamba.
I see that there is overwhelming support.
Yes.
Yes. The House will stand adjourned at 4 p.m. Let me announce the guests first. Okay. Yeah. Honorable members, I wish to recognize the presence of Kidengi Day Secondary School from Manyata constituency in Embu County and Sigot Secondary School from Mosop constituency, Nandi County, and Aga Khan Primary School, Kisumu Central, Kisumu County, all seated in the public gallery. I'm told I wasn't loud enough about the adjournment motion by the Honorable Owen Baya, member for Kilifi North. The motion shall be debated at 4 p.m. Honorable members, we have a very little time to 4 o'clock anyway, so we'll be able to have time, and everyone will be debating for 5 minutes each, which means a lot of members will get an opportunity to deliberate on this.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
The Honorable Wanjiku Muhia, member for Kipipiri.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. It is Kipipiri, but it is a tongue twister indeed.
Kipipiri, now I got it.
Or in mother tongue, Kefeferi. Honorable Speaker, I wish to make a general statement regarding the unfolding security situation in Sudan. And Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provision of Standing Order number 44-2B, and as the chairperson of the Select Committee on Regional Integration, I rise to make a statement regarding the unfolding security situation in Sudan. Honorable Speaker, as members may be aware, Kenya and Sudan are both members of the regional bloc known as Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD, a regional body that has increasingly become a critical component in Eastern Africa's integration effort. Honorable Speaker, as we are extremely concerned by the fighting that has broken out in Sudan, leading to the loss of hundreds of lives, massive destruction of property, and the displacement of many civilians. The fighting is in its 11th day, posing serious humanitarian crisis and the shutdown of vital supplies like provision of water, provision of electricity, food supplies, and medical services in the affected region. Honorable Speaker, as a House, we recognize that the peaceful coexistence and stability in the Republic of Sudan is key to the social and economic progress of the entire region. There is urgent need, therefore, to contain the situation because we would not wish for this to be further exacerbated by war in IGAD member states, thus destabilizing regional peace and security. Honorable Speaker, with the escalating conflict, foreign countries have started evacuating their nationals from Sudan. I would urge our government to also speed up emergency evacuation, operation, and humanitarian assistance to Kenyans working and living in Sudan. Further, I urge Kenyans in the country and other parts of the world to register with the embassies nearest them to ease assistance during such occurrences. Honorable Speaker, as a House, we appeal to IGAD, to African Union, and other regional bodies and the international community to expedite dialogue and mediation mechanism towards ending the ongoing conflict as soon as possible and to restore peace, security, and stability in Sudan. I thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as we are aware, and I am done with my statement, maybe just through one sentence, communities or regional blocks come together fundamentally because there is need to create peace and stability in the regions. One of us, being a member state from either East African Community, IGAD, or even the larger African Union, being not in peace, it is affecting the whole region. And as such, it is necessary for a House to make a voice so that we also be on record that we advocate for peace and stability in one of our member states. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes. The Honorable John Murumba of Tongaren constituency. Oh, you did not want to speak to this. Could you press the intervention button if you want to contribute this particular one? The Honorable Member for Matuga, Kasim Tandaza.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwanza tumshukuru mwenyekiti wa kamati ya uwiano kwa kuleta swala hili katika bunge. Tukijua kwamba Sudan kuna Wakenya wengi. Sudan kuna chuo kikuu ambacho hususan huwa kinatoa scholarships kwa watoto wengi sana Afrika nzima na hasa hapa Kenya. Mara ya mwisho nilipoangalia kulikuwa na wanafunzi peke yake zaidi ya 1000 katika chuo kikuu cha International University of Africa pale Khartoum. Kwa hivyo hawa ni watoto ambao walipatiwa scholarships, wakapatiwa tikiti ya ndege ya kwenda, wanakaa pale bure, na ni wazi hawana uwezo wowote wa wao kujisimamia wakati vita janga kama hili limetokea. Kwa hivyo hoja ambayo imeletwa hapa ni ya muhimu na haraka ya dharura, kuona ni vipi kama serikali ya Kenya itaweza kuwanusuru sio wanafunzi peke yake, ijapokuwa wanafunzi ndio hawana uwezo zaidi, lakini katika wakati huu ambao hata usafiri wa kawaida haupo, basi itahitaji mkono wa serikali, vitengo vyote vinavyohusika vya kidiplomasia, vitengo vya usalama, kuona kwamba Wakenya ambao wako pale hawataweza kudhurika. Tusisahau kwamba saa hizi tayari tuna shida za kutosha hapa Kenya. Kuna hoja ambayo imetolewa ambayo baadaye itakuwa inazungumziwa ya maafa ambayo yametokea kule Kilifi. Itakuwa ni jambo la kuhuzunisha tuwe na maafa mengine ya kiasi kikubwa, hasa nchi geni kama ya South Sudan. Kwa hivyo yangu ni kiunga mkono hoja hii na kusindikiza serikali na vitengo vyote vinavyohusika kuona kwamba hatua za haraka zinachukuliwa kuwanusuru, na pia katika ngazi za kimataifa kuona kwamba suluhisho pia inapatikana, kwa sababu wakati mapigano yakitokea huwa hakuna yeyote ambaye huwa ananufaika. Na katika bara la Afrika imefika wakati tuwe bara la amani, sio bara la kuleta vita. Nikiunga mkono na shukuru aliyeleta hoja hii, lakini serikali ichukue hatua za dharura. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Member for Tabaj, Honorable Hussein Bare.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'll wish to make my contribution.
Give us a minute. I think there's a point of order by Honorable Wanjiku Muhia.
Information. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Nothing is out of order. I was giving very critical information that we are speaking of the Republic of Sudan. It is not Republic of South Sudan. Republic of South Sudan is in peace and sound. It is Republic of South Sudan. Sudan. Sorry.
Honorable Hussein, you had the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wish to make my contribution to this motion, which I feel is extremely very important and timely. As you know, Sudan is a neighbor and a very important member in IGAD, and we have quite a number of our students there. I lived there in Khartoum, and even now I get a number of calls from students in Khartoum who are all calling for evacuation from Khartoum, where the fight is going on. So I'll wish to join my colleague and support this motion by saying that every diplomatic effort no effort should be spared in seeing mediation or resolution of this conflict in Khartoum. And in the meantime, let's do all that is possible as a government to rescue our students who are there. There are quite a number, and I'm sure there are over 2,000 students or 3,000 students in Khartoum who are from Kenya, and they're all crying for help. So let us spare no effort in rescuing our students from that war. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Christine Ombaka, member for Siaya County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this giving me this opportunity. I just want to also support the motion because Kenyans are suffering in Sudan, and Sudan has always been known to be a war zone, and Kenyans have lost their lives before. They're still continuing to lose their lives, and they're desperately calling for help. This is the time to show that we care, that we look after our own citizens outside the country. So I take this opportunity to support this and to highlight the fact that life is important and that must be seen to be responsible to bring our people back home. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
The Honorable Joseph Cherorot, member for Kipkelion East.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the time you've given me. I want to support a statement from KBC Member of Parliament concerning what's happening in Sudan, Madam Speaker. As we talk, I know several families and so many lives have been lost because of the war that is on in Sudan. This one, Madam Speaker, is not only about Sudan, but it's about also several aliens who are living there from different countries, especially Kenyans. We also have Somalis. We have also other foreigners who are in that country. This incident that is taking place, Madam Speaker, if it is not contained immediately, it's going actually to extend to other countries. There was a viral video which was going on, which is so terrifying. And I want also to ask the government to take a step and make sure that they evacuate our members, Kenyans who are in Sudan. Yesterday we saw some of them were brought in, but it requires a joint effort also from other countries. Madam Speaker, I want to support that statement, and I want to encourage that also the Minister of Foreign Affairs to make sure that through the diplomatic way to try and contain and try and visit. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Turkana East, Honourable Nicholas Ngikolong.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this time to contribute to this important statement. Madam Speaker, what is happening in Sudan, it is inhuman. And me coming from the nearby county of Turkana, which borders the southern Sudan, which is part of the Sudan country, Madam Speaker, we have our people who are ailing in Sudan, some in southern Sudan and others in Sudan. Madam Speaker, we really feel the government to come in and save our people who are in Sudan. Because what we are seeing through the media and what is happening in Sudan, it is really terrible. And we feel our people to be evacuated so that they can come back to Kenya, or they can go to other areas which are safe, maybe in southern Sudan or other areas of the nearby the country of Sudan. Madam Speaker, I support this, and we need the government to come in immediately to save our people there in Sudan.
Go to the final pass. The Honourable John Waweru, Dagoretti South.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I want to thank also the Chair of Integrated Regional Committee. Madam Speaker, Africa has been here far too many times. And whenever this happens, one of two things can happen. The first one is that the international community, especially beyond the borders of the continent, can take advantage of such a flare-up to put their foot into Africa and exacerbate the issue even further. So, Madam Speaker, this is a great opportunity for us to take advantage of the second scenario that can unfold, which is for Africa to step up to the plate and prove that Africa can resolve its own issues. Madam Speaker, Kenya has an advantage by first being geographically close to Sudan, but secondly, because historically Kenya has been known as the place where mediation can happen. The Kenya government needs to step up and lead the mediation efforts so that we can be able to mobilize not only the regional bodies but also the continental bodies, and no less the African Union, so that for the first time Africa can be seen to be resolving its own issues without having to involve people who traditionally have been benefiting from such conflicts, and especially our friends from the West and the Far East, who always take advantage of such conflict to be able to reap out in terms of resources that can be shipped out of this continent. Madam Speaker, the Kenya government, secondly, will need to step up and just save the lives and the livelihoods of Kenyans who are caught up in Sudan. And this is possible because we have no other business than along.
The Honorable Martha Wangari, member for Gilgil.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also join my colleagues in congratulating Honorable Wanjiku Muhia, and also with her grasp of regional issues that she has brought this issue to this floor, which is very important in the region, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, I think what we can learn as a country is how delicate peace is, and we must always guard our peace in this country, Madam Speaker. But more importantly, I would like to speak to the issue of evacuation. I know we have already started seeing some coming in yesterday, and I hope that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and especially with the newly created diaspora department, Madam Speaker, will keep up in terms of ensuring that the information is given out there. I've seen them in their social media, I have seen it on Twitter, so that the people who are stranded in Sudan, especially those who are doing Islamic teachings there, because it is very good in that area, Madam Speaker, the population of students is very high, they are calling for evacuation. I pray that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, coupled with the defense, Madam Speaker, will be able to get these Kenyans home to ensure that they are safe, and more importantly, that we support the President in his role as the mediator and IGAD, Madam Speaker, to ensure that we can do proper mediation so that the warring sides can be able to prioritize life and peace for that country, Madam Speaker, because even us in the region, it will affect us if it is not stable. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for that opportunity.
The Honourable Member for Funyula, Honourable Wilberforce Oundo.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Let me also congratulate the MP for Kipipiri for having brought this statement on this floor to highlight the dire situation that our citizens find themselves in the Republic of Sudan. Conflicts, Honourable Speaker, can erupt anywhere. Conflicts is always with us all the time, but the hallmark of a nation is ability to ride through the conflict and hold the country together. What is happening in Sudan, Honorable Speaker, is a classical case of historical injustice having swept under the carpet. They are festering themselves and they have erupted now at this particular time. It's a call to all countries within the region that whenever they have conflicts, they must make all efforts to resolve those conflicts. We want to urge the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to move with speed, evacuate citizens in that country, because Kenya, being what it is a very big country that has got resources that should be enabled to go over, use whatever resources they have to bring our people back. It would be such a shame that we lose any life unnecessarily in the Republic of Sudan, yet we need those lives, we need those resources to come and work for us in nation building. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. I have been informed that many of the members who have logged in actually want to discuss the Shakahola killings. So I think we can move to the next order.
Order number 8, motion, inquiry regarding sexual harassment of female workers in tea estates in Kericho County.
Honorable members, I think I should stand guided. Had we already, we had proposed the question. Yeah. Yes. Honorable members, I now put the question that the motion be amended by A, inserting the following words immediately after figure 2023, subject to the insertion of the following recommendations in paragraph 74 after subparagraph 9 on page 23 of the report, and 10, where the tea estates are found culpable of acts of commission or omission regarding the sexual harassment of their employees, the government should ensure that the tea estates adequately compensate the victims for the damages occasioned by these heinous acts. And 11, the government should provide psychosocial support to the victims to mitigate the effects of these traumatic experiences and aid them in their recovery. And B, that the consequential amendments be effected in the report thereof. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. We now call upon the mover to reply.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And I wish to start by thanking the Honorable Beatrice Kemei, who brought this matter to this House, the issue to do with sexual harassment of female tea workers in Kericho County. Madam Speaker, that is an indication that Kericho County, as a member who is very dedicated in her job and that of serving her county. Madam Speaker, I wish to also thank the committee members of the Departmental Committee on Labor for a job very well done. They were able to go to Kericho, did the job of the investigation. And Madam Speaker, I remember it was raining and the committee members were very determined to ensure that they are done with the investigations so that they could do a report which we eventually tabled before this House. Madam Speaker, it is important for me to note that when we tabled this report before the House, it elicited a lot of interest from the members, and especially the women members who took time to contribute, make deliberations, and support this report, because in these modern days and time, Madam Speaker, it is very bad that women have to be harassed or exploited sexually. Madam Speaker, what is happening in the world today is all efforts to empower the women all over the world. So when we have people who think that women should be exploited sexually for favors, for promotion, or even for increment of wages, it is so sad, and this should be stopped, Madam Speaker. I wish also to support the amendments that have been brought by the Honorable Beatrice Kemei, because actually the tea estates should be held accountable. Whenever these acts happen in their estates, they should be compelled to ensure that the victims are compensated. And above that, Madam Speaker, it is important for government to provide the support, the psychosocial support, because part of the reason why many women are not coming out to report these cases, it is because of stigmatization. Yeah? So it is important that these women and even the men who could be affected being given psychosocial support so they are able to move on with their lives and even get more aware of the the working environment around them. So having said that, Madam Speaker, I wish to submit.
Honorable members, I now put the question that this House adopts the report of the Committee on Labour on the inquiry regarding sexual harassment of female workers in tea estates in Kericho County, laid on the table of this House on Thursday, 23rd March 2023, subject to A, insertion of the following recommendations in paragraph 74 after paragraph 74(9) on page 23 of the report. 10, where the tea estates are found culpable of acts of commission or omission, the government shall ensure that the tea estates adequately compensate the victims of the damages occasioned by the heinous acts. And 11, the government should provide psychosocial support to the victims to mitigate the effects of these traumatic experiences and assist them in their recovery. And B, that the consequential amendments be effected in the report thereof. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 9, motion, appointment of a firm to provide external audit services to the Office of the Auditor General.
Chairperson for the Public Accounts Committee,
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that this House adopts the report of the Public Accounts Committee on the appointment of a firm to provide external audit services to the Office of the Auditor General with respect to the accounts of the Office of the Auditor General and the financial statements for mortgage and car loan scheme of the Office of the Auditor General, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, April 20th, 2023, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 226(4) of the Constitution and Section 43 of the Public Audit Act 2015, appoints MSPKF Kenya LLP for purposes of providing external audit services to the Office of the Auditor General with respect to the accounts of the Office of the Auditor General for the financial year 2020-2021 and 2021-2022, and the financial statements for the staff mortgage and car loan scheme of the Office of the Auditor General for the financial years 2017-2018, 2018-2019, 2019-2020, 2020-2021, and 2021-2022. So, Madam Speaker, the people of Kenya, through the 2010 Constitution, decided to make a provision under Article 226 of our Constitution requiring that Parliament appoints auditor to audit the auditor. What I mean is the auditor to audit the Office of the Auditor General, because the Auditor General has the mandate to audit all ministries, all the government ministries, departments, and state agencies, including state investments. But then who audits the Auditor General? That should be an auditor appointed by the oversighting institution to the Office of the Auditor General, and that is Parliament. So, Madam Speaker, very quickly, maybe the honorable members may be interested in finding out how did we arrive at PKF Kenya LLP as the auditor which is going to audit, or who is going to audit the Office of the Auditor General for the financial years mentioned, 2020, 2021, and 2021, 2022, together with these special audits of the staff mortgage and car loan schemes all the way from 2017 to date have not been audited. What happened is that the Parliament, through our procurement system put up an advert in the local dailies as it is required by law, inviting auditing firms which are interested or who are interested in auditing the Office of the Auditor General to come forward and tender or bring forward their quotes or bids. Madam Speaker, this advert was in the Daily Nation and the Standard newspaper of 16th February 2023. Then on 28th February, Madam Speaker, the tender submission and opening date was scheduled for 28th of February 2023 at 11 a.m. The tender document required bids to submit separate technical and financial evaluation bids for evaluation. Then on 23rd of February, Madam Speaker, a tender committee was appointed by the accounting officer, who is the clerk of the National Assembly of the Republic of Kenya, which is pursuant to Section 78 of the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act 2015, to oversee the tender opening process. Madam Speaker, I'm bringing this background so that members may and Kenyans may appreciate that the auditing firm that has been arrived at was competitively recruited for this through a tender process. The following 8 firms, Madam Speaker, responded to by submitting their bids. That is EKV and Associates, number 2, BDO East Africa Kenya, number 3, Kigo Jenga and Company, number 4, Kiarie Kangede and Company, number 5, PKF Kenya LLP, number 5, Baker Tilly, number 7, Mazars LLP, number 8, Ambale Ogot and Company LLP. Madam Speaker, I would have given much more details, but let me just summarize by saying that after evaluation, because again, I may not be required to go into the details of why the other 7 were did not qualify or did not succeed. And only one auditing firm, that is PKF Kenya Limited, proceeded to the financial evaluation. The rest were knocked out at the technical evaluation stage. And so there were a lot of conditions. There was preliminary or mandatory evaluation, there was technical evaluation, there was financial evaluation, and then determination of the lowest bidder. So, Madam Speaker, in a nutshell, after doing all this, then PKF Kenya LLP emerged as the most competitive bidder for this particular process. And the other 7 have been notified, they have been written to, notified that they did not qualify by the accounting officer, who is the clerk of the National Assembly. And up to the time they were given for appeal, no appeal was made by the 7 unsuccessful firms. The highest bidder scored a total score of 79%. And I want to conclude by saying that, Madam Speaker, where we are, the accounting officer would now, with the approval of this House, go ahead and notify the successful bidder and award the tender for this audit exercise at a total sum of 19,088,699 shillings. For transparency, that is what they're going to charge, and which is within the budget, which we checked, and it is within the budget, would charge for this audit work. I want to conclude by saying that on Thursday last week, the clerk of the National Assembly, together with the technical team, which did evaluation, appeared before Public Accounts Committee, because this is not work that we did as Public Accounts Committee, but they presented to us the report, and the committee deliberated and adopted the same. I tabled the same to the House on Thursday and gave notice for this motion. Madam Speaker, we want the books of the Auditor General also to be audited, so that we don't have Auditor General which audits others and their books are not audited. for 2020, 2021, and 2021, 2022. My only plea with this House is that the way we are moving with our work as Public Accounts Committee, I foresee us concluding the audits of 2020, 2021 within next month. We will do a report immediately. We resume after recess. The report will be debated. And then my committee has already set a target of September of this year to clear with the 2021-2022 financial year. And what that means, and which the people of Kenya will understand, is that the Parliament of Kenya will have cleared all the financial years, and we will be waiting for the Auditor General now to audit 2022-2023. So the story of we cannot divide revenue based on current audited accounts will be a thing of the past, Madam Speaker. And as we progress, we are going to do more as Public Accounts Committee of special audits. And we will require the Auditor General to do more work, because the committee will not have the usual historical financial audits. We will now be doing special and forensic audits. We will be calling on the Auditor General to always do those audits and bring the report to us. Therefore, we need to give that office more finances. That is where I was driving at. We need, as a House, to allocate more resources to this office if we want to reduce corruption in this country. Otherwise, Madam Speaker, I know members are interested in discussing the next motion after this motion. I would want to stop there by moving this and asking Honorable Kagombe, who is a member of my committee, to second this motion. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, I beg to second the motion because the Office of the Auditor General, as we understand, is a very important office, and the operations are hampered by lack of proper accounting because of lack of an audit, and also because the company that has been shortlisted or picked to do audit is a known company with a good reputation, and I therefore second, Madam Speaker.
Honorable members, I now propose the question that this House adopts the report of the Public Accounts Committee on the appointment of the firm to provide external audit services to the Office of the Auditor General with respect to the accounts of the Office of the Auditor General and the financial statements for the mortgage and car loan scheme of the Office of the Auditor General, laid on the table of this House on Thursday, April 20th, 2023, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 2264 of the Constitution and Section 43 of the Public Audit Act 2015, appoints MSPKF Kenya LLP for the purposes of providing external audit services to the Office of the Attorney General with respect to the accounts of the Office of the Auditor General for the period 2020, 2021, and 2021, 2022, and the financial statements of the staff mortgage and car loan scheme of the Office of the Auditor General for the financial years 2017, 2018, and 2018, 2019, and 2019, 2020, and 2020, 21, and finally 2021/2022. The Honorable Minority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I want to make some short comments on this motion. First and foremost, I want to say that this is perhaps the third time this House is being asked to approve the appointment of an audit firm to audit the accounts of the books of the Auditor General. The last two such motions were moved by myself in the last Parliament. Madam Speaker, ordinarily this is a motion that I would have no issue supporting, because the matters are straightforward. And indeed, the need to audit those accounts can not be overemphasized, given the critical role that office does in ensuring that there's accountability in the expenditure or application of public funds duly appropriated by this House. I only have one small matter, which perhaps I would have wanted to know if some due diligence was carried upon. Now, Speaker, you know we are a House of Records, and together with the Senate, we form what is called Parliament. There's a report which has been brought to my attention that was done by a committee chaired by Isiolo Senator Fatuma Dulo in the Senate. This report arose out of an inquiry into what is famously referred to as MES, or the Management Equipment Scheme, or Managed Equipment Scheme, whatever it is, in the Ministry of Health. And in that report, the Fatuma Dulo Committee indicted PKF Kenya, the audit firm which supposedly gave advisory opinion to the Ministry of Health when conceptualizing and initiating this MES scheme or project. Indeed, the committee went further to direct the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya, ISPAC, to conduct or to undertake or to carry out disciplinary proceedings or action against PKF Kenya under the Accountants Act for what it called unethical and unprofessional conduct. So that is what's really causing me some worry. Is it true, perhaps, that we, as a House, we did carry out some due diligence before arriving at this decision to recommend this firm to undertake this task? I know for sure, because I have, in the past, moved a motion to appoint PKF to do this work in the past Parliament, last Parliament. But then, at that time, this report of the Senate had not come through. Now that we have a report in the Senate, which was approved, with these far-reaching recommendations against this audit, would we be in order, really, to go ahead and assume or ignore all that information contained in that report and recommend this law firm? I'm not saying yes or no. I'm just raising this out of duty to the House and to the country. That even as we approve this, which I'm sure we may, given the numbers and the mood, yeah, we might have to ask ourselves some hard questions, whether this is the right way to go, in my view. The money involved is little. It's about 19 million shillings. It's immaterial, in my view, given the task ahead and the amount of money that the Auditor General's office is supposed to be safeguarding. But we must get it right. If you want to get a right product, you must get the process right. That is my contention, Madam Speaker, this afternoon as we ventilate on this very important matter. Otherwise, I totally support the idea that an audit firm needs to be appointed to audit the books of the Auditor General. Thank you.
Honorable Dr. Pukose, what's your point of order?
Madam Speaker, the issues the minority leader has raised are very weighty matters. And I think it is very wrong for him to raise those issues and still support the report. I think if it is true that what is raised and the Hansard can be able to give us a report on that, then we should not be rightly supporting this appointment, because if the other house, which is Parliament, has indicted this PKF, then the majority leader should be able to lay his, the minority leader should be able to lay his clear points very clear to this house, so that the house can reject until we are able to be satisfied that are proper, because it will be very wrong for us to support it without when the House has queried its credibility, because that is a sense of credibility. So, Madam Speaker, I think the minority leader should be able to be held accountable for his claims. And if there is that, then he should be able even to table a report, and we should not be able to debate this motion until we are able to be satisfied that what we are debating is rightfully before this House.
Give Badi to respond.
Yes.
Honorable Badi, Chairperson, Public Accounts Committee.
The guy doesn't want to
respond.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the point that the issue raised by the leader of minority, Honorable Pio and I, is a valid one. And Madam Speaker, we have information that the reports that was proposed in the Senate by Dulo's committee was rejected by the Senate. So it was not a report that was adopted by Parliament. So that is number one. Number two, we counter-checked with the Board of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya to confirm the standing of this audit firm. And the standing with ISPAC is that is in good standing. So having confirmed that, Madam Speaker, and I want to just remind members, 3 times we have tried to get auditor for Auditor General, and we have failed. In fact, in 2017, 2018, and again in 2018, 2019, in all those occasions, the tendering process was non-responsive. This is the first time at least we have found a responsive tender. And the reason is simple. Most auditing firms are shying away from auditing the Auditor General because the Auditor General has some work also. They contract auditing firms to do audit work. And so most of these firms prefer the work that they would get from the Auditor General's office. Therefore, they would not want conflict of interest by auditing the same. So it is a problem, Madam Speaker, I understand, because 8 firms which responded, only this one was successful up to the end. The other 7 were dropped at the technical evaluation stage. But in a nutshell, just to respond to the concerns of Honorable Pio and I, first, the report of Fatuma Dulo's committee was not adopted by the Senate. It was dropped. It was defeated at the Senate for whatever reasons. Senate knows best. But on ISPAC, again, we cross-checked, and the firm is in good standing. I rest my case, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and let me rise to support this report, Honorable Speaker, for appointment of the auditor to the auditor. Indeed, Honorable Speaker, the question has been raised as to who audits the auditor. And in parliamentary democracies like ours, is indeed this House or Parliament that should audit the auditor. Therefore, the auditor that the Honorable John Badi is recommending him to do the work on behalf of the House, because we are the ones who oversight the office of the Auditor General. But Honorable Speaker, also, let me appreciate the input that the Honorable John Badi has put in regard to the issue raised by the leader of minority. And indeed, if it is true that the report by Senate was never adopted by that House, then that report is mute. And therefore, we cannot peg such an adverse report that was never approved or adopted by the House to judge adversely PKF as an audit firm. But also, Honorable Speaker, more important is the issue that has also been raised by the Chairman PAC, the Honorable John Badi. And it is indeed true. I remember as way back as early 2015, we sought in this House to appoint an auditor to the Auditor General's office, and on 2 occasions we were not successful. And what Honorable Pio and I says when he was the Chair PAC, he indeed was successful, which I think was the first time that we were successful since the 11th Parliament. And therefore, it is not an easy thing to do because, as the Honorable John Badi has stated, auditors, many audit firms are shy from taking up the work of auditing the auditor because they are looking at the more lucrative jobs that come from the Auditor General's office. However, Mr. Speaker, maybe speaking to Nancy Gadhungu, that now she will be audited by PKF. We do not expect PKF to also get jobs to audit other firms or other government agencies, work given by the Office of the Auditor General, because that will now amount to a complete conflict of interest. And therefore, even as PKF, if approved by this House, takes up the job to audit the Auditor General's office, they must know and be aware that they now preclude themselves from auditing any other government agencies that are under the purview of the Auditor General. But that does not mean that they cannot audit agencies that are not being audited by the Auditor General, so that we also again don't discourage other audit firms from taking up these jobs. Honorable Speaker, I therefore rise to support with that cautionary statement to Auditor General Gathungu, Nancy Gathungu, and PKF, and wish PKF all the best as they embark on that onerous task of auditing the auditor. And in conclusion, Honorable Speaker, because about 2 weeks ago, I did see the chair of our Public Accounts Committee prosecute something to do with the fertilizer subsidy in the media. And I really want to encourage the Public Accounts Committee to work hand in hand with the Auditor General's office to ensure that issues that are of concern either to the committee or to committee members, as the Honorable John Buddy has severally advised us in this House. And Honorable John Buddy, I'm saying you have severally advised members of the House, issues that are of concern and issues that are important to this country, we must avoid politicizing them, so that by the time the Auditor General does an audit and tables a report before this House for onward transmission to the Public Accounts Committee, then it is not seen in any way like it was being done for political expediency. And therefore, even as we carry on with the work of reviewing our audit reports, I want to encourage the Public Accounts Committee. See, like there's a point of order from John Buddy.
Point of order from Honorable Buddy.
Why are you anticipating it?
Thank you. I wonder why the leader of majority wants this point of order. But, Madam Speaker, I'm on a point of order. Madam Speaker, I think the majority leader is misrepresenting facts. I only informed the public. And actually, it was not John Buddy. This was a decision that was taken by the committee. The motion was moved by Honorable Nabina Bwera and seconded by Dr. Mugo, who are members of my committee, and we adopted it unanimously that we would have a forensic audit to be done on this matter because it had raised issues of concern, and we didn't want to play politics. That is why we said we are not going to say money has been lost. What we said is we are asking the Auditor General, and today I'm signing that letter, Madam Speaker, this evening before I go to bed. I'm signing the letter to ask the Office of the Auditor General to do forensic audit on this matter. There cannot be politics where the Office of the Auditor General is involved. And I want to assure Kenyans and the majority leader, and he knows what, when I mean business, I mean business. I want to assure you that this matter will be prosecuted with fairness, objectivity, apolitical, and it will be a matter that will be settled based on facts. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, you know, the former leader of minority was wondering why I was welcoming his point of order. But Honorable Speaker, you know, I'm a man who adheres to rules and procedures, and I know when a member rises on a point of order, as the Speaker has severally advised us, you take your seat and allow the point of order. And I hope those like Honorable Dindi Nyoro who are conversing in Kikuyu and Kiswahili here can listen, so that they also learn that when another member rises on a point of order, allow him to prosecute his point of order and therefore respond, because you also benefit. For instance, now I have benefited from the knowledge that indeed, as John Buddy addressed that press conference with the member for the Honorable Edwin Mugo, because there were just the two of them, I presume, as the Honorable John Buddy had said, John Buddy has just told us that tonight, before he goes to bed, he will have signed that letter. And that is exactly the point I was raising, Honorable Speaker, that our committees, especially our oversight committees, must not be seen in any way to be speaking to the gallery and playing politics with important issues as audit matters. And therefore, I would have expected that procedurally, the committee should have occasioned that letter to go to the Auditor General to begin the audit, even before we go to announce to the world, because when we announce to the world, we are probably signaling those who might be stealing to now get ready and start the cover-up. Quietly do your work, occasion the audit so that you catch the thieves. And Honorable Speaker, I was only saying that, and it's good the Honorable John Buddy. I see there is another point of order, Honorable Speaker.
Madam Speaker, ordinarily I wouldn't wish to interrupt Honorable Chungwa, but I'm rather concerned that if we allow the trajectory the Honorable Chungwa has taken on this matter, it would be tantamount to giving him room to start gagging committees and their chairpersons. Because there's no rule whatsoever under the standing orders that stops a chairperson who is actually the official spokesperson of a committee from communicating to whomsoever, including the media and the entire world, on their intentions, however noble or not so noble they may be. Madam Speaker, those cartels have to be put on notice so that they know what awaits them. Those cartels who are smuggling in fertilizer and maize have to be put on notice, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Honorable Speaker, let me again graciously welcome the sentiments by our Leader of Minority. And the Leader of Minority is the immediate former chair of PAC. The current chair of PAC is the immediate former Leader of Minority. So it is role swapped, and therefore they have a lot of learning to do from each other. And the Honorable Pio and I will tell you, at no time when he was a chair PAC did he ever play to the gallery. And I was only saying this, Honorable Speaker, as a cautionary statement, so that, and I have no intentions, Honorable Pio and I. In fact, I have invited the Public Accounts Committee, and what worried me is that we might be running to speak to the gallery or to play to the gallery at the risk of signaling cartels in government to start hiding what they are stealing. Number two, Honorable Speaker, the Public Accounts Committee of this House is one of the busiest committees, and Honorable John Buddy will agree with me, plus the members of that committee. They sit in room 9 almost throughout the week, and they are very busy, Honorable Speaker. But I want to encourage them, even as we look into or anticipate work from the Auditor General, there is already work on the subsidies, the maize subsidy. There is already work on the fuel subsidy. There is already work on the KEMSA COVID haste. There is work on the telecom haste. And you have seen last week, Honorable Speaker, a gentleman who shamelessly told the country that he was paid a cool 400 million shillings because he is smart. Mind you, Honorable Speaker, this gentleman who was so smart to be paid 400 million shillings for being smart, assuming the rest of Kenyans are stupid, this is a gentleman who at the time, and I hope the Public Accounts Committee, the Finance Committee, and the ICT Committee will pick up this issue, even as they consider whatever they are considering in their report. That at the time this gentleman was being paid for being smart in advising Telcom, that's a telco provider, this gentleman was serving as the chair of Safaricom PLC. And government has shareholding in both companies. And therefore, there was already a direct conflict of interest that at a time when you are chairing one board, you are advising a competitor's board. Honorable Speaker, then you tell us you are smart. You could be smart in stealing. And committees of this House must ensure that these thieves are brought to book, Honorable Speaker. With those very many remarks, Honorable Speaker, because I see I am inviting very many points of objection. But I hope these points of objection or points of order are not in any way to gag me from calling out the thieves and the cartels that looted this country dry in the last regime. because the Public Accounts Committee, we shall hold you as a house to account to make sure that the cartels that looted this country are brought to book. And it will not matter whether they were operating from big offices, it will not matter whether they were smart, it will not matter whether they were moving their money from here to Malaysia, to Cayman Islands, to Pandora Papers. It will not matter. They must answer. So that even in this government, Mr. Speaker, which is more important, even in this government, we must not feed cartels. And we must not feed cartels. And John Buddy, you have an onerous responsibility to ensure the Public Accounts Committee and the Auditor General and this audit firm, this PKF, work to ensure that the Auditor General also works to oversight and provide meaningful oversight over government agencies and ministries. With those many remarks, may I wish all the cartels that have been stealing from government in the past, and even those who intend to steal under this government, that they be on notice. We are watching them, as we are watching the Public Accounts Committee and the Public Investments Committee of this House to ensure that they do their work without fear, without favor, and without being compromised by the cartels. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
A member for...
They are listening where they are. I am certain that the Office of the Auditor General cannot again contract. Madam Speaker, the Leader of Majority is a bully. He's distracting me, but I refuse to be distracted.
You're protected. Proceed.
Yeah, so Madam Speaker, I am sure Nancy Gadungu will not contract again PKF to audit any other government institution through her office. Well, they can get audit work without the Office of the Auditor General, but I am sure that will be conflict of interest if the Office of the Auditor General contracts them. Madam Speaker, as I conclude, I just want to assure the Leader of Majority and the people of Kenya once more that Public Accounts Committee, we are doing our work objectively. We are not looking at political camps. We are almost done with the 2020-2021 financial year, and the report will be tabled in this House. And the members of this House will have opportunity to interact with those reports. Cartels should not have any space in this country. Whether there were cartels of the previous regime or the cartels of the current regime, cartels are cartels. They are destructive to the economy of this country, and we must deal with them. And Honorable Wechungwa has some selective memory. I don't know why. Honorable Wechungwa, I have also equally communicated the same way I talked about the fertilizer audit, about Article 223, that the Auditor and the Auditor General has up to end of June to audit all expenditure under Article 223, which were made by the previous regime and the current regime. So that report will come to the Public Accounts Committee. It is a special audit report. The moment it lands on our table as part of the Republic of Kenya, of the National Assembly of Kenya, we will transact our business publicly So you will see all those issues of maize subsidy, and that is why I thought the committees of parliament which are dealing with matters which are clearly audit issues, and they are transacting business, they are going on, summoning and inviting state officers without any audit report before them. I think that is where politics begins. But if we have report from the Office of the Auditor General clearly stating what happened with the taxpayers' money, then it will not be political. The people of Kenya are not stupid. They will know when Mbadi is playing politics and when I'm professional. And most of the times, if not all of the time, I am professional, I am objective when it comes to matters accountability. And so, Honorable Chungwa, don't worry. If there were people who carried monies due to Malaysia, I don't know where you met them when they were taking this money to Malaysia, you are likely to be convicted for being in conspiracy with people who are stealing our money. Because you seem to be having too much details about people who are carrying money to Malaysia and whatever tax havens. I think you must have been participating in these things. Because personally, I don't know. I have no idea about the tax havens. I have never saved even 1 shilling out of this country. I have never saved even 1,000 out of this. All my money is in this country, in KCB, Coop Bank. But you seem to be having too much information about people keeping money in this. What are these islands he has been talking about? Yes. So you tell us the information you have and why you can't supply it to the state agencies so that these people are arrested and dealt with. Unless you are one of them and you are running ahead of time.
Let's get point of order. Yes, proceed on your point of order. I think Honorable Mbadi has finished.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
And we hope yours will be brief too.
You know the Honorable John Mbadi, I had been very kind to him when he stood on a point of order. Honorable Speaker, if you can protect me from the shouting by the member for Budalangi. And I know it's raining, but he must know from the Kibaki regime, the people of Budalangi were sorted on the issue of floods. So he must stop shouting. Honorable Speaker, I was saying, when the Honorable John Mbadi stood on a point of order, I was very gracious. And when the Honorable John Mbadi must learn to listen, then respond. I was saying, when he stood on a point of order, I was gracious to sit down and allow you to prosecute your point of order and respond. But that did not allow him the leeway to impute improper motive on something that I raised as a member of parliament, Honorable Speaker. And I do not raise issues about theft. In the previous regime, as leader of majority, I raised them as a Kenyan and as a member of parliament of Kikuyu. Honorable Speaker, the fact that I have raised, and Honorable John Mbadi can confirm on the Hansard, when I said when these matters arrive before his committee, Public Accounts Committee, I am ready, I am willing and available to adduce evidence of those people who are cutting out money from government coffers to Malaysia, onward to the Cayman Islands. And that is why I'm challenging the Honorable John Mbadi. Don't get jittery. Don't get jittery that people are speaking out. And we will continue to speak out, Madam Speaker, and I want you, Honorable Speaker, that you rule the member for the Honorable John Mbadi out of order for imputing improper motive on my person, saying that unless I was cutting this money away with the people that I know about, this is how you intimidate witnesses, not to adduce evidence before committees. But I will be the last person to intimidate. Whether it is who John Mbadi, I will appear before your committee and I will adduce evidence. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, you must protect me, Honorable Speaker, from this imputing of improper motive recklessly, just to speak to the gallery again. And you remember the issue I had raised was speaking to the gallery, and he is doing the same now again. John Mbadi, you know, you are my junior professionally. I qualified as a certified public accountant when John Buddy was still pursuing his Section 4,
What is your point of order,
when I was a
Honorable
first-year
Wanjala?
student at the University of Nairobi, when he was a junior finance officer at UNES,
Another member is
and I
on
had
their
qualified
feet.
as an accountant. Professionally, you are my you might be older, but professionally,
Order,
you are my junior.
Order, members.
And you must also...
Order, members. What is your point of order, Honorable Wanjala?
Madam Speaker, I don't want to engage the Honorable Leader of Majority. He stood on a point of order and he had insinuated when he was talking, and he has continued doing the same. He's not just an ordinary member of Parliament. He is a leader of majority. He's supposed to protect this country, especially when...
Nikiunga mkono statement ya Mheshimiwa Senator Miraji. Bwana Speaker, juzi nilikuwa about wiki mbili iliyopita nilikuwa nimeenda Addis Ababa. Ethiopia Airlines, ile faida wametengeneza miaka hii tuko saa hii ni milioni 950 dola ya Amerika. Bilioni 950. Bwana Speaker, Bwana Speaker, Telcom ya Ethiopia imetengeneza bilioni 2 dolari hata hiyo. Sio pesa ya nchi nyingine, pesa ya Amerika. Bwana Speaker,
walio wachache
Bwana Spika, ndugu yangu Senator wa Marsabit na mheshimu sana na rafiki yangu sana, na singependelea kumwingilia kati, lakini ametaja pesa za Amerika kama dolari. Je, pesa za Amerika zaitwa dolari ama ziko na jina lingine la Kiswahili?
Mweleze vile inaitwa, sababu unajua wewe unaelewa labda inaitwaje.
Unasema tu dola.
Zitachute.
Bwana Speaker, asante sana Bwana Speaker. Dola ni Kiingereza, dolari ni Kiswahili ile sanifu kabisa. Bwana Speaker, ukiangalia Bwana Speaker, vile mambo iko sahi Kenya, sijui kama tumerogwa na nani, mimi sijui paka sahi. Ukienda nchi nyingine watu wote wanafanya kazi yao vizuri. Ukiangalia kampuni ya sukari Kenya yote iko chini. Ukiangalia kampuni ya Telcom iko chini. Sasa kama kampuni ya Telcom Ethiopia imetengeneza bilioni 2. Hata Safaricom wamefika huko, Bwana Speaker, wameshindwa kuingia kwa sababu ile Telcom ya Ethiopia iko na nguvu zaidi. Kwa hivyo kama wakikataza ndege zingine kutua mahali zingine Mombasa na mahali zingine, haitasaidia Kenya Airways. Kenya Airways imefilisika, imekwisha. Hata wakifanya nini hawataendelea. Ile mambo mzuri watafanya, wajaribu kusaidia Kenya Airways.
Senator Gloria, what is your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, Senator Chute, my chair, is actually misleading the House because he cannot come and say that nothing can be done to uplift Kenya Airways. That is not a fact, Mr. Speaker. We are actually in the process of ensuring that Kenya Airways is profitable, so he must withdraw that statement.
Who is in the process? Can you just clarify so that he can
Yes,
understand?
Mr. Speaker, I meant to say that this government is actually in the process of reviving Kenya Airways. The Kenya Kwanza government, led by the President, His Excellency Dr. William Samoei Ruto.
So let's go to the next order, Mr. Clerk. Kindly. That's the end of. We are done with the happy hour. Now we want to go to serious business.
Order number 8, the Equalization Fund Appropriation Bill, Senate Bills number 3 of 2023. Second reading. Resumption of debate.
Honorable Senators, we are resuming debate interrupted on Thursday, 20th of April, 2023. And this bill, I understand it was moved and seconded. And now it is open for members now to contribute to the motion. I start with the Senator Olekina Rendama. You are number 1 on my list. Sorry? Who? On Equalization Fund? Okay. Yeah, I think my direction was very right, 100%. Senator Gruri, you are out of order. Senator Olekina, proceed. You did not contribute. This is open for grabs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the Equalization Fund Appropriation Bill 2023. And from the onset, Mr. Speaker, I want to go on record and say that I do hope that finally counties will be able to get their money. The Constitution provides for setting up a percentage of revenue to be able to assist counties that have been dragging behind to catch up to the other counties. Mr. Speaker, the way this country was developed was along the railway line. If you look at what is happening in this country today, Mr. Speaker, where there is development is where the railway line. This is because of session paper number 10. But the framers of our Constitution saw it fit to set aside a certain amount of money to be able to assist counties develop. Mr. Speaker, we talk about equity versus equality. And the framers of this Constitution would like to see a country where equity would be the rule of law. Last year, Mr. Speaker, engaging with the Commission of Revenue Allocation, we were discussing on the parameters to be used. I remember in this House, we were arguing and saying, where is the disparity in this country? The current governor of Nairobi, who was then the senator of Nairobi, but then I would refer to him as Senator Sakaja, raised certain very important points and said that there's a lot of disparity. There's a lot of challenges in Nairobi County, and that Nairobi County should have also been considered with this fund. So there I posed the question, Mr. Speaker. What exactly were we looking at when you talk about the Equalization Fund? Other people refer to it as a marginalization fund. I know, Mr. Speaker, that the decision to be able to define counties as being marginalized was reached by a serious study that was carried out by the Commission of Revenue Allocation. I'm happy that ultimately they decided to narrow down to wards, sub-wards of villages so that they can be able to assist counties at least grow, develop. One of my biggest pet peeves, Mr. Speaker, is that every financial year, money is set aside, but that money never reaches the counties. I hope that now, finally, with this equalization fund, the monies will be able to reach the counties. One of my other biggest problems, Mr. Speaker, is that there are so many people through the Ministry of Planning who are engaged in contracts. And if you happen to go to counties, Mr. Speaker, you'll be shocked. There are hospitals which were built, but they ended up just being white elephants. Earlier on, when I was in my office, I was listening to the good senator from Homa Bay talking about pending bills. And yesterday, we had the cabinet secretary in charge of Treasury discussing about pending bills. And also money that is sent to counties vis-a-vis money that is sent to national government. It is sad, Mr. Speaker, that at this time we are still grappling with the idea of coming up with legislation to be able to ensure that we comply with the Constitution. We have violated the Constitution for so many years. Right now, Treasury has violated Article 219 when it comes to the issue of sending money, the share of county government, where hopefully yesterday we got into some form of consensus where money for February will be sent. Now, Mr. Speaker, my biggest problem is this. The Constitution sets up a sunset clause on the issue of the equalization. It was only supposed to be 10 years, but our counties have not enjoyed any resources from the equalization fund. We have kept this money. So the question is, as I support this bill, will all the money be sent that has been kept aside? Is that money there in the consolidated fund or it's not there? Those people who build those hospitals and were never paid, will they be paid? Will those hospitals that were built in some counties, those roads which were paved or maybe graded, so that these counties or villages who are still living in the old ages can be able to slowly catch up with the rest of Kenya? Are those roads still, are they still functional, or are they dilapidated? Mr. Speaker, sir, I think as a country, we need to be asking ourselves and reminding ourselves the concept of a fiduciary responsibility. I would dare say, Mr. Speaker, that we have not been responsible as legislators, as the other arm of government, the executive, because at least if we were and we cared about our counties catching up with other counties, 2023 should not be the first time when we are discussing the issue of equalization fund. And if we are to be remorseful, I hope that Treasury will be able to release the entire amount set aside to our counties. I do hope also that those contracts, or which will be built using the money from the Equalization Fund, will be given to youth, women from those villages. We don't want a situation whereby a small cabal or a cartel ends up getting all the contracts. Yet, the whole concept of setting aside a small percentage of all the revenue collected should be supporting those counties which are behind. So, Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, since I do not want to belabor the point, I think my point was very clear from the onset. This Senate failed, in my view, in defending devolution by agreeing for the very first time with the national government in terms of the shareable revenue. And we are going to pay hard for it. I do hope that now all of us will be able to support this and also follow through to make sure that whatever amount of money is sent to Narok. And I think the process which has been set up now is a point of order. I'm happy to wait.
Yes, Senator Chelagay.
Mr. Speaker, I raise under Standing Order number 105 on responsibility of fact what Senator Ledama is insinuating is that the Senate did participate in cutting money that is meant to be sent to counties. Mr. Speaker, Senator Ledama and I sat in this House, and in the last financial year, counties got 370 billion. We have increased by 15 billion to 385 billion. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a house of record, tradition, and respect. I would urge my colleague, Mr. Speaker, through you, to separate what he says in public and in newspapers and what he is saying on the floor of the House. Because we cannot participate. Mr. Speaker, I remember, even in your ruling on the Meru case, when I tried to contest on the report that were tabled in this House, I was disagreeing with it. Mr. Speaker, I was thrown outside the chamber. So is Senator Ledama in order to allege that the Senate is killing, dismembering, committing macabre against devolution, Mr. Speaker? Yet we have added 15 billion. In fact, what he should be saying, Mr. Speaker, is that the Senate added 15 billion to 385 billion, although they wanted 407 billion, Mr. Speaker. So this incitement of Senate by the likes of Senator Ledama, by the public, is uncalled for, Mr. Speaker. And he knows very well that when in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, under Article 202, the country is in a deep mess because of public debt. And the first charge when we collect revenue is the high of 10 trillion, Mr. Speaker. And you are aware Senator Ledama voted, Mr. Speaker, and it is on the record, in the rising of public debt ceiling. So is it in order for him to mourn and wail more than the bereaved, Mr. Speaker?
Senator Rekina, you have earned the issues raised on your statement.
Mr. Speaker, facts are very stubborn. In the history of the Senate, this Senate, for the very first time, failed devolution. Mr. Speaker, this Senate, for the very first time, went against its own committee. Mr. Speaker, the committee, which is chaired by the distinguished senator from Mandera, is a committee of this House. The committee proposed that we, in this committee, in this Parliament, agree with the Commission of Revenue Allocation by sending money, 407 billion shillings, to counties. If the distinguished senator from Nandi would like me to substantiate my facts, I'll be more than happy, Mr. Speaker. And the first thing I'll table here are two things. One, I'll table the report of the Committee of Finance, chaired by the very able party leader, EGH, chairman, Captain Ali Roba, who recommended that we send 407 billion. Mr. Speaker, this is something I'm willing to be able to defend. And we will cry for a very long time, Mr. Speaker. It is absolutely ludicrous for any one of us to purport to say that this Senate has promoted devolution by agreeing with the national government. Our task is very simple, Mr. Speaker. Our task is to defend devolution. In fact, the very Division of Revenue bill that my brother is now inviting me to comment on says that Article 218 says that when we deviate from the recommendation of the Commission of Revenue Allocation, we must give substantive reasons. The reasons which were given in the Division of Revenue bill, the memoranda, to try and justify the deviation from the Commission of Revenue, when the National Assembly suggested that, proposed that we send 385, was that money was set aside to pay the Hustler Fund. So it begs the question, why are we here? Are we here to defend national government, or are we here to defend the county government? Mr. Speaker, facts are very stubborn. And let me tell you, we will cry, and next time, when the distinguished senator, I'm responding to his point of order.
Just a minute, Senator Ledama. What is it against Senator Chelege?
Mr. Speaker, on a point of order,
what you
Mr.
should do is
Speaker,
also to
Mr. Speaker, do not be intimidated.
Also to contribute
Mr. Speaker,
to the motion.
Mr. Speaker, understanding order 183, 105, Mr. Speaker, I just wanted him to clarify, because, Mr. Speaker, every committee makes a report. The Senate, you cannot behave as if the Senate must agree with the committee report. Mr. Speaker, there are instances when investigated senators, Senator Ledama, sat in the committee of investigating on what we call medical equipment supplies. And in that report where he was a member, he said this was a criminal enterprise. But he came and denied the same report, Mr. Speaker. So the House has power either to agree or disagree with any committee, Mr. Speaker. And therefore the statement and accuracy of facts was to stop misleading the House and the public. Because, Mr. Speaker, the last financial year was 370 billion. We have increased by 15 billion, shareable revenue to 385 billion, Mr. Speaker. Under Article 202, all the way to 205, Mr. Speaker, it is not only shareable revenue, Mr. Speaker. Can I finish, Mr. Speaker? So that he didn't listen properly. You know, Mr. Speaker, maybe he has been busy milking cows. Mr. Speaker, under Article 202 and 205, the money that goes to counties, Mr. Speaker, is one, shareable revenue, conditional grants, and other grants that are being given by national government, Mr. Speaker. So to sit in the House and mislead that the money that was meant to the counties were being taken to Hustler Fund is a fallacy, a misnomer, Mr. Speaker, and you should not allow him to go through that direction, Mr. Speaker. Is he in order to allege that any report prepared by its committee of the Senate should be agreed with, Mr. Speaker?
Senator Ndama Olekina, can you kindly conclude?
Mr. Speaker, you know,
and honorable senators, the word shame is not parliamentary. You are colleagues, honorable Sifuna. The word is shame is unparliamentary, absolutely. Because this house, you either vote to defeat a bill, you either vote nay or yes. And that is done. So, you know, the one shame to me as your chair this afternoon is conclude and
Mr.
finish.
Speaker, you know, it baffles me when a senator, someone who is supposed to read any bill that he contributes to, stands on the floor of the House and says that I'm misleading the public, that the reason why we deviated was not because of the Hustler Fund. Mr. Speaker, I want to invite the distinguished senator from Nandi to go out and seek for a copy of the Division of Revenue Bill and read the memorandum. There are reasons which were given. This is a gentleman who is an advocate of the High Court. I would believe that an advocate of the High Court, you know, or allegedly, you know, Mr. Speaker, would pay attentive to details and read everything. Mr. Speaker, you know, really, the points of orders by Senator, this point of orders, Mr. Speaker, are point of annoyance and, you know, seriously.
Let us hear this point of order from Senator Kinyua.
Mr. Speaker.
And also maybe you must really quote the standing order.
Mr. Speaker, it is Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is in public domain that Senator Cherargei, even the Kenya Gazette, has been put clearly. He is the advocate of the High Court, Mr. Speaker. For somebody, Mr. Speaker, it is not in our standing order. It is in the Kenya Gazette, Mr. Speaker. The Kenya Gazette states very clearly. He is, Mr. Speaker, he is. You cannot come here and say you're insinuating. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, he doesn't allege, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, it must be known, the committee of this House are only 9 members, Mr. Speaker. In this House, we only have 9 members. When the report is brought here, it can be amended by this House, Mr. Speaker. So it is no big deal when the Senator Rober brought a report here and it was amended. The Senate was doing its work, Mr. Speaker. So Senator from Narok cannot come here and try to tell us the report was brought. So many reports have been brought in this House, Mr. Speaker. Okay. They are amended. This is not the first one, Mr. Speaker.
Your point is saying, Senator Ndamolekina, kindly conclude your contribution.
Mr. Speaker.
Senator Sifuna, you must learn the tricks of this game. Point of order on what? But he is not on the floor. You must wait. Senator Molekina, proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I'm loving this because, you know, debate is a terminology used in Parliament for or against. You know, and it is very interesting because this point of orders by the distinguished senator from Nandi are not really point of orders because facts are very stubborn. Point of information. I'll be more than happy to be informed.
Senator Molekina, you want to be informed?
Absolutely.
Okay, proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I wanted to inform my colleague here that in fact the conduct by Senator Cherargei offends Standing Order 121 1B, where a colleague knowingly raises a false point of order. That is not a point of order, Mr. Speaker. It is a pretext for him to defend himself against the heat that he's feeling both in Nandi and in Nairobi for the vote that he took. Mr. Speaker, it is in fact a question of fact that there was a committee report by the Finance Committee that was brought before this House, asking this House to add counties money from 385 to 407. It is also a fact that that bill or that proposal or the amendment to the bill was put to this House in a vote. It is also a fact that 22 of our colleagues decided that they were not going to support our committee, the Finance Committee, but they were going to follow direction from other quarters, Mr. Speaker. So we understand the discomfort. People don't want us to discuss. I'm on a point of order. I'm on a point of order. Teacher, the rules of the House. Mr. Speaker, I'm on a point of order. I'm on a point of order.
Conclude your point of order. Conclude.
Mr. Speaker, whether you like it or not, history has already been written.
Out of order. Just give him time to finish his.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
He is also on a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You cannot rise on a point of order when another member is on a point of order. Just familiarize yourself with the standing orders.
Thank you for protecting me against ignorance, Mr. Speaker.
But proceed and finish.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for your protection against ignorance.
You know, Senator Sifuna and given you a leeway to make your contributions.
Let me finish.
Just the information you have to give him should
Let me finish. Until he is informed properly, Mr. Speaker.
No.
You need to allow me to
give him a brief information.
In 1 minute. In 1 minute.
In
1 minute. Mr. Speaker, the ink is dry on history. The vote was taken last week. It doesn't matter how much discomfort it causes you. Let your conscience kill you, but the fact of the matter remains that you voted to deny counties money. Thank you.
So, Lekina, you are done because you have been informed. We go to the next member.
What? No, I've not done. Mr. Speaker, I was interrupted on my third point, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, I've been interrupted. I haven't even contributed. You know, 4 minutes. Very good, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there's another point of order. Mr. Speaker, these are points of annoyance. And Mr. Speaker, I hope that you will not listen to them anymore. You know, as I conclude on the matter that I was being asked to substantiate, Mr. Speaker, I've sat on this chair now for the last 6 years. And in 2 years, Mr. Speaker, I sat in the mediation committee between the National Assembly and the Senate. And for the history of the Senate, this year will go down as the first year when we have denied counties money. That's a fact. Resting that point, Mr. Speaker, I also want to reiterate that our relevance in this House is determined on how much we send to the counties and how we oversight our counties. We will go down in history as a parliament or a Senate that has killed devolution or contributed to the killing of devolution. Now, Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to see that my county will get some money. I'm happy to see that at least those people who are poor, who cannot be able to get resources in their wards, will be given some money to be able to try and catch up with the rest. I do hope, Mr. Speaker, that these funds will not be treated the same way the shareable revenue is treated, where they'll be delayed. Because if they are delayed, because, Mr. Speaker, this is a country that does not, and I repeat, does not respect the Constitution. Because if we did respect the Constitution, Article 219 would not have been violated. You know, yesterday, the CS Treasury said that when they receive donor funds, they do not hold that money. That money is sent immediately. Now, Mr. Speaker, I also want to say that Equalization Fund, the fund is set aside by the Constitution. So that money should be treated equally, that it is money, there is a legislative framework on how to disperse that money to counties. Do not delay that money. Mr. Speaker, looking at the amount allocated, and it's important that I mention for my people of Narok to see, is that starting with Transmara East, Emuredikir, I'm happy to see that there'll be about 30 million shillings, which will be transferred to Kapsasian and Mogondo wards. In Kilgoris, Angata Barigoi will get that about, can we see, 51 million. Kayan ward will get another 33 million. Kilgoris Central will get 50 million. Kimintet, 54. Just looking at Kilgoris constituency on its own, will get 289 million shillings. Narok East, where I come from, will get about 122 million. Narok North will get about 203 million. Narok South will get about 230 million. And Narok West will get about 161 million. Now, Mr. Speaker, I wish there's a way that we could ring fence these funds to ensure that those who participate in the tenders are people from those wards. That is when we can clearly define the meaning of equalization. But what will happen, and this is the reality, which is one of my biggest pet peeves, Mr. Speaker, is that people who are tenderpreneurs and they know themselves, they are the ones who will be running from one office to another, seeking a tender. Just like when the budget is made in this country, someone always makes sure that there's a road for them. I hope, Mr. Speaker, that for once, this Parliament, even if we've lost on one battle, at least we can think about the future. You know, sometimes, Mr. Speaker, we behave as if we will live forever. We will not. We are just passing through. So in order to ensure that at least we support our brothers who have been left behind for many years, you know, for them to get a hospital, for them to get a road. Because another big debate, Mr. Speaker, will come up. And the biggest debate which will come is one that we defeated in the last Parliament, which is on the issue of how resources should be divided in this country. I do hope that this Equalization Fund will now give us a second time to be able to redraft the session paper number 10. So that every part of this country can be able to develop. I'd be happy, Mr. Speaker, if I see a child from Mosiro, a place where this year many families or many homes were literally closed completely because of the drought. I'd be happy to see a child from there becoming a president of this country one day. The only way we can do it is, number one, Mr. Speaker, ensure that these funds from the Equalization Fund actually do reach the people who they're intended to. Number two, something which I think we need to consider as a Senate is to be able to readjust the sunset clause of the money which was set aside for the Equalization Fund. Because for 3 years that money has, for more than, I think more than how many years? Like 8 years. You know? More than 8 years. That money has never been set. Has never been, I'm even surprised, Mr. Speaker, that we're only getting very little. We're getting peanuts. So I think as we pass this, I do hope that the Finance Committee will actually now task will go to the consolidated fund and see how much of that money is there. Because I don't believe the schedule which is presented here equals to the amount of money that has already been set aside. I'm happy to be informed, Mr. Speaker, before I conclude. So I can
proceed, conclude kindly. Senator Olekina, conclude your contribution.
Okay. I really want to be informed. But anyway, if I cannot be informed, I might as well end there. Eddie?
No time for information.
There's no time for information.
Just survive with what you know for now.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for giving me this time. Be blessed.
Honorable Senators, there was a directive I was to make on the statement issued by Senator Milaj. This statement should go to the Committee on Loans, Transportation and Housing. That's a statement on landing rights for scheduled international flights to Mombasa International Airport. Senator Sigei Wakiri.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise also to give my contributions in support of the Equalization Bill. And Mr. Speaker, my colleagues have spoken to the Division of Revenue Bill that was passed in this House last week. And I would love to be very candid and also inform the House that sometimes it's good to be a realist, especially when it comes to matters to do with national issues and also resources to our county governments. It is very convenient, Mr. Speaker, to speak about what is very negative. It is very convenient to say that this House denied counties revenues or funds that are entitled to. It is not convenient, however, to say the positives that went into it. Mr. Speaker, we are aware that as a House, there is always a procedure to be followed, where a report from every committee comes before the House. It is debated, it can be amended, it can be adopted without the amendments. In this particular case, Mr. Speaker, the bill that came before the House was voted in, an amendment was proposed, and therefore that went into what the majority of the members of the House dealt with. Mr. Speaker, none is speaking to the issue on the positives of that particular bill, including the enhanced allocation to the national issues, an allocation to the library services that previously was never available, and nobody is talking about the fact that that is a devolved function. It cannot therefore be lost, Mr. Speaker, that the Senate is there to protect the devolution, it is there to protect the county governments, and that is exactly what this House did last week in order to ensure that whatever resources that are allocated to the counties are available for disbursements. We saw and heard yesterday the Council of Governors speaking to the issue on it, and Mr. Speaker, that is as regards the bill. Now, Mr. Speaker, allow me to speak to the issue on the Equalization Fund Bill. Article 204, Mr. Speaker, of the Constitution.
A minute, Senator Sigei. What's your point of clarification, Senator Asige Kegei? You said point of information.
But I don't want to be informed, Mr. Speaker.
You have the mic.
Speaker, Mr. Speaker, mine was a point of clarification. I thought that the senator from Bomet County was rising to...
Who is clarifying? Because that...
It's a point of clarification.
Maybe
it's a
point of
clarification.
Information. You want to inform him?
My point of clarification is not a point of order.
Senator Christos.
Chair, Speaker, my point of clarification was just for you to help me clarify whether the senator from Bomet County is contributing to the Equalization Fund or what happened last week. Because right now I thought, Chair, Mr. Speaker, we are contributing to the Equalization Fund. So my clarification is about relevance to his contribution. Thank you.
Senator Sigei.
Mr. Speaker, I was laying the foundation to my contribution to the Equalization Fund. Yes. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, allow me to continue and contribute to the Equalization Fund.
Okay.
And Mr. Speaker, I must also kindly protect Mr. Speaker from the Honorable Cherargei.
You say, sorry?
Kindly protect me from the Honorable Senator Cherargei,
yes,
who is interrupting as I contribute.
When you're out of order, then you have a point of order.
Mr. Speaker.
Proceed, Senator Sigei.
Mr. Speaker, when we talk about the Equalization Fund, it is aimed at, from the drafters of the Constitution, equalizing, or rather ensuring that there is equality, and some or most of the marginalized counties and areas of our counties in this country are not left behind. Mr. Speaker, it is aimed at ensuring that we tag along all Kenyans in terms of their development, in terms of resource allocation, and in terms of ensuring that there is a benefit in those areas from the resources from the country. And the Equalization Fund, Mr. Speaker, from what I have gone through in this case, unlike what my learned my colleague Senator Ledama has initially said, is that this indeed has got a sunset clause. But as we speak right now, I, as a representative of the County of Bomet, appreciate the allocation that has been given now to the County of Bomet, but still seek to ensure that all the areas where they are marginalized, in this case under the policy or under the policy by the CRA in terms of identifying the areas which needs to benefit and needs to be enhanced, because there are certain areas where they are not supposed to benefit, but they are benefiting from this fund. In this case, Mr. Speaker, the county government of Bomet under the constituency where I come from, indeed, this is Chepalungu constituency. Chebunya ward has benefited out of the fund with 8.7 million. Nyangores ward, 8.6 million. Sigor ward, 8.5 million, Mr. Speaker, totaling 25.8 million. In this particular allocation, Mr. Speaker, from where I sit, there are direct benefits that people coming from these particular wards will benefit. However, there are other places where this ought to have been the place most demanding or requiring of the fund, so that the services including water, roads, health facilities are, Mr. Speaker, availed to the people, especially where this is aimed at ensuring that we have areas to benefit. However, Mr. Speaker, in terms of now the allocation of this fund, we do propose, and as I support the bill, that this fund should, as it's already been set aside, immediately be released, so that we do not get to the situation like where we are at the moment. Allocations are made, but the funds are not released for the direct benefit of the areas identified as marginalized areas. Mr. Speaker, this is the position. I would support the bill as it is presented by the committee. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Senator Asige.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute to the Equalization Fund that's being discussed this afternoon. Speaker, I rise to support the bill. Mr. Speaker, I wish to also thank the committee for the work done so far on the bill, appreciating its time sensitivity, being that the end of the financial year is fast approaching. What we know so far, Mr. Speaker, is that the bill comes at a time when several counties are still in desperate need of basic services, specifically captured under Article 204(2) of the Constitution. It provides that the national government shall use the Equalization Fund only to provide essential services, including water, roads, health facilities, and electricity to marginalized areas. to the extent, Mr. Speaker, necessary to bring the quality of these services in those areas to a level generally enjoyed by the rest of the nation. My view, Mr. Speaker, is that it is essential to have an explicit formula or provide exact portions allocated to benefit PWDs, children, elderly, youth, and women who make up special interest groups in these marginalized areas. The Equalization Fund should ensure that the funds allocations allocated to each ward has specific carve-outs for special interest groups in line with the objectives in our Constitution. Mr. Speaker, as you know, you will mostly find in our urban areas Kenyans of working age leaving their home counties in search of opportunities to better their lives. For example, Mr. Speaker, a young man from Marsabit will move to Nakuru. Another from Lamu may move to Mombasa. Another from Nyamira might move to Kisumu. And thousands will move to Nairobi. This means that our villages and rural areas comprise heavily of women, the elderly, PWDs, as well as other marginalized groups. A clear allocation structure is vital to ensure that the segment of society is not left behind and that the funds are utilized effectively to address the needs of our marginalized communities within these marginalized areas. Tied to this, Mr. Speaker, is the urgency to implement any programs covered by this fund because of its sunset clause, designed to lapse 20 years after its commencement. Mr. Speaker, this puts it at only a handful years left unless we as Parliament intervene. Mr. Speaker, in the 2011-12 financial year, the approximated constitutional entitlement was the sum of 2.3 billion. However, nothing was transferred to the fund. 5 years on, in 2015/16, it had accrued to 15.4 billion, yet only about 6.4 billion was transferred to the fund. In the current financial year, 12 years since inception of the fund, the entitlement has accrued to 55.3 billion, but the transfers are not clear, resulting in a huge shortfall against the entitlement. Further, Mr. Speaker, according to a report published by UNICEF, 31% of Kenyans do not have access to clean water, with 72% lacking proper sanitation right now as we speak. If put to proper use, Mr. Speaker, the monies from this fund would reduce these numbers, enhance quality of life, increase our Human Development Index, and create a sustainable lifestyle for the affected communities, particularly special interest groups, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there are some gaps that I have also identified as important to be addressed, even as we move to pass this bill. Firstly, the bill should specify the accounts from which the allocated funds will be withdrawn. It is crucial to set up designated accounts for each county to ensure that the circa 13 billion appropriated by the fund are used for the specific purposes itemized in the Constitution. Secondly, considering the sunset clause, nothing much has happened since its inception. The fund is in substantial arrears despite constitutional requirements to ring-fence its allocation and to transfer those allocations to the fund's accounts. Third, the Commission for Revenue Allocation and the Equalization Fund Board must also serve the Senate with regular M&E reports. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to the Equalization Fund, the revenue shared must be in line with the Constitution, as what is currently being used as a basis is not clear or legally measurable. Mr. Speaker, we might be in danger of using a lower threshold, as some of the revenue components seem to be excluded from the aggregates. This is my submission, Mr. Speaker, as I support the bill. I thank you.
Thank you. Senator Crystal, Senator Abbas Sheikh Mohammed, Senator Ekomwa James Lomenen,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this opportunity. I strongly support this bill because, Mr. Speaker, I urge and request the Finance Committee to seek more funds that was allocated in the past years since 2013. I remember and I know and I have the experience that some of these funds of equalization were not disbursed to the specific or to the mentioned counties. Mr. Speaker, I remember one time we, as members of Parliament from the marginalized areas, we visited the Treasury, the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury, and we asked him that the Treasury has equalization fund, and he said we were promised that the project that we were identified will be funded by the national government. I want to be so specific, Mr. Speaker. Due to the sessional paper number 10 of 1965, I don't know why that decision was really made. Mr. Speaker, the sessional paper that denied some counties the potential of advancing, the potential of development, it is not written in any scripture. It is not even written in Quran. It is not even written in the Bible. It is not even written in the Constitution. Why these areas, these counties were marginalized? And to be logic, Mr. Speaker, areas like Marsabit, areas like Mandera, areas like Turkana, which is 77,000 kilometers square. How, when you put Marsabit and Turkana, it's like a half of Kenya. So, Mr. Speaker, the reason why we were denied this opportunity of development, it is not known up to now, Mr. Speaker. But since it is our time, I know, Mr. Speaker, the first thing that I support this bill. Mr. Speaker, the funds that are allocated to Turkana County, surely I appreciate. But in reality, Mr. Speaker, there was supposed to be 3 times or 4 times than the years that were not, the area did not get the allocation of equalization fund. The area is fast. Mr. Speaker, 50 years ago, the county and other areas that are so-called marginalized were denied justice. Mr. Speaker, the first time we saw a tarmac road was just 5 years ago. 5 years ago. Yet, this money was meant for electricity, was meant for roads, was meant for health facility. Mr. Speaker, these funds are supposed to be allocated to marginalized counties so that it can go be at par with other counties. Mr. Speaker, up to now, some counties are still in dark ages. We can call them because in the Bible says they say light and darkness will never remain the same. Meaning, these areas, these counties that are in darkness will never be at par with those of those developed counties. Mr. Speaker, the issue that is so painful, one time an experienced speaker, I crossed a river as a member of parliament, and I crossed the river without some of my clothes because there was no bridge. Expectant mothers across the river and they lost their children. The elders were very old. They wanted to access to an early center, just an early center, not an hospital. So they lost their life. So what we are saying, it is not just sympathy. It is a deliberate action to confirm that this nation, that any part of this nation enjoys the privileges and the right of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, that is not enough. Mr. Speaker, in these areas, people are still struggling with basic needs, health, water, and food. They cannot afford a meal in a day. Mr. Speaker, that's why we are saying, when will they enjoy that right of food, right of health services, right of electricity? Mr. Speaker, as the cost of electricity is going high now, Mr. Speaker, we will wonder how will these areas, if they have been, the cost of electricity has been high most of the time, will they actually, this time, will they actually afford electricity? I doubt, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the other most important point that we want to say, that I want to mention, Mr. Speaker, water is a problem in these marginalized areas. That is why we require this amount so that the citizens of these marginalized areas are given their right, they enjoy their right. Mr. Speaker, moreover, the issue of electricity, most of these areas are intact. They have not seen the electric wire. So when will they see? This is the right time for them to see electricity. Rural electrification is supposed to be in proper. REREC, Kenya Power, some of these areas, they have not even seen even a post of erupted by Kenya Power or REREC. They do not know. So that is why it is not their problem, it is deliberate. You have remember a certain dictum, Mr. Speaker, when they say, when you are traveling from Turkana to Nairobi, they say, I am going to Kenya. Because the area Kenya is developed, Nairobi. When Nairobi were building roads, schools, health centers, and these other important amenities. In this area, they were in darkness. They were just taking care of the animals. It is time, Mr. Speaker, we call a spade. We give Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and God what belongs to God. Give Nairobi what belongs to Nairobi. Give Lodwar, Turkana County, what belongs to Turkana County. God did not make a mistake to make creation the way it is. It isn't. The only thing I did, I know, Mr. Speaker, God is a visionary God. God is God who's vision. In these areas, he decided to put sugar again in some areas, tomatoes, whatever, coffee. But in these areas that we are so we say marginalized. Mr. Speaker, I want to make this statement. One time, one moment, this country will depend the so-called the marginalized counties. Why? It's because, Mr. Speaker, what we've realized recently, that all the minerals, gold, silver, oil, and others, they are found in marginalized areas. Meaning, go there, the plan. He said, let us just use the resources that are found within Nairobi and areas within Nairobi. Then, when it gets finished, we will go to Turkana County and we will get assisted. Mr. Speaker, to tell you an exhibit. The other thing I want to ask my brothers, my senators, with due respect. I know that in the Constitution, 20 years were allocated for this marginalization. But the reason, because of the delay, because of the issues that are so critical, these other 10 years were go to loss, the areas did not benefit. But when I read the Constitution, I ask members of Parliament, dignified senators, we can still appeal, we can still amend. Half of these members of Senate can appeal, amend this Constitution so that we can add the lost 10 years, so that we become 20, so that we enjoy these services of electricity, roads, and water. We enjoy them until the time we come at par with the other areas. Mr. Speaker, I have a case study. We passed a division of revenue bill. It's very okay. There is someone who was singing a song that money is not the problem. The problem is how to use the money. Yeah, money is not the problem. Problem is how to use money. Yes, we have passed the division bill. We have appropriated. We have passed this equalization fund. We have passed the bill of appropriation. There is the question that the senators are supposed to ask. Do they have enough teeth, the strong teeth, to bite? This is what we are asking the leadership of this House, that we have disbursed money to the county. But what you will realize when we are disbursing funds, the senators are forgotten. They will not even pick their calls. They are just looking like people who who yeah, and it's like we are refugees in our own, we are IDPs in our own land, in our own county. We expected the oversight fund. We expected this oversight fund to be the teeth to bite, so that we evaluate, we monitor, we oversight this fund at the county, so that we make sure if it is water, a ball, 10 balls, we make sure these 10 balls are done. If there is electricity, we make sure every village that is rural is electrified. When we see roads, we make sure roads are there. So, Mr. Speaker, one thing that I was a former member of Parliament, 11 Parliament and 11 Parliament and 12 Parliament. Something that I want to tell my colleagues. It is a paradox that CDF was building a road, a road with 1 million, 1 million, 1.5 or 2 million, the highest. But now when we get into the county, we find a road that is worthy 2 kilometers or 3 or 5 kilometers is 25 billion. 25 billion against 1 billion, surely. This is misappropriation. So we can pass this appropriation, I support. But in reality, you will get that it will be misappropriated, to tell you the truth. The other thing, the designs in the counties. We are supposed to have a design of which is a government official who is specialized in making designs. You will see the designs differ. Every governor gets his designer, the one who draws the projects. And you will find it is too expensive. Mr. Speaker, the other grave issue is that the cost of any inflation of funds there, you will find there are projects in the counties they are not complete. And these projects, most of these projects are for national government. People get contracts from here, they see contracts from the rural areas, marginalized areas, and then after getting the tender, they say, this area is very insecure, I cannot go there. Why did you agree to take that money? Was that money not insecure? No, that is marginalization. When a project is meant to be taken to Kibich, let it be taken to Kibich. God created this asset. Let there be sun, and the sun was there. Let there be moon, and the moon was there. This is what we are supposed to do in this Senate. When we are saying, let the classroom be in Kibich, let that classroom be there. Let the road be in Mombasa or Malindi. Let it be there. Because that is the reason we have that power. The citizens have given us power to do what they want, to do their priorities. So, Mr. Speaker, this money, I appreciate. Because they say, what God has given you, just appreciate. But in the reality, it is not enough. And I ask if it will reach the third reading. Surely, I will ask our brethren, our dignified senators, we should just add Turkana County, because you know Turkana we have gold. We will also give you paraffin, kerosene, whatever. If you add us something, Senator Kajwang, if you give us something more than this, we will also consider you in the future. Because I remember the Bible says, when you deny me this opportunity on earth, you will also deny that opportunity in earth, in heaven, during the day. Yes. Point of information. No, I am just quoting the scriptures. And the scriptures, you cannot have information of more about the scriptures. You have just observed. But thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I support
Senator Lomenen. Senator Kajwang Moses Otieno.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this bill for very selfish reasons. And I'm embarrassed that I'm not supporting it for nationalistic reasons that builds a nation called Kenya, but reasons that are rather selfish. Mr. Speaker, Homa Bay County is receiving 176 million in their allocations that will come from the monies that we've approved today. Out of the 13.89 billion, Homa Bay Town will get 8.6 million. Ndiwa constituency will get 99 million. Suba North will get 24 million. Suba South will get 44 million. So, Speaker, it's very difficult to stand on the floor of this House and argue against money that is going to your county. But it is still not enough, Mr. Speaker. If we go by the deprivation index that the CRA came up with, to determine which administrative units should get this money, we still think that the 176 million going to Homa Bay is not enough. Mr. Speaker, this fund has been ring-fenced for basic services including provision of water, roads, health, and electricity. And in as much as I'm talking about Homa Bay getting 176 million, a ward like Gembe, where I come from, Mr. Speaker, in Suba North constituency, will be getting about 8 million shillings. And Mr. Speaker, that 8 million shillings, if you look at it being an allocation that spans 2 financial years, then you'll realize that this money is not sufficient to carry out an effective implementation or an effective project that will reverse the marginalization that these areas have experienced over the years. And so, Mr. Speaker, I wish that going forward, the 0.5% that is specified in the Constitution can be applied to the latest audited accounts, and I do hope that the National Assembly, whose accounts are used as a basis for this allocation, can fast-track their consideration of audit reports so that we get the very most recent audited accounts of the national government funds, and that way perhaps Homa Bay will get more than 176 million.
Senator Kajwang, do you want to be informed by the Honorable Senator?
Indeed, my neighbor and younger brother can inform me, right, particularly if my fly has not been zipped up.
Senator Kajwang, I think that I really share in your pain with regards to what you're getting in this particular schedule. And I think that what I wanted to inform you about is that since the inception of the Constitution, when this particular fund was established, it is important to note that our biggest struggle has been to implement this particular part of the Constitution. Because, Senator Kajwang, if you look at it very critically, if we go by the financial year 2022-2023, because I sit in this committee, by now, the National Treasury should have given this fund 54 billion. And today, what we are struggling with in this bill, Senator Kajwang, we are merely struggling to get 10 billion, because what had been allocated, what had actually been availed was 26 billion, but what we are fighting for here...
What's your point of
Kajwang,
order, Senator?
I am on a point of order. Can we be able to implement the rules of the House? I'm on a point of information to Kajwang.
What is your point of order?
Let me just finish.
You are on a point of...
I'm informing him because I'm informing Kajwang. So Kajwang, what I wanted to ask you to fight for is if we can be able to fight for this money, that by now, if we can be able to insist as a House so that we get the entire 54 billion, you will be better placed to be able to get more money for your particular county. And as I finish...
just go straight to your information. You're already debating. You're eating into Senator Kajwang's time. Inform.
I'm not contributing. Okay.
Finish up, Senator.
So as I finish, Kajwang, on this point of information, I think that your pain is also expressed by some senators who are not informed that actually they needed to have fought for 22 billion in DORA that was supposed to go to their county. It's very disappointing to see somebody like Lemon here about very small money here. When you are given an opportunity to put more money to your people, then you kill it. So Kajwang, fight for the bigger pie that is here than the smaller one that we are allocating right now.
The mic. Thank you, Senator, for Migori, for duly informing me. Mr. Speaker, with that information in mind, we must reflect on the reason why the Equalization Fund was established. Article 204(1) of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, talks about the Equalization Fund. And in all our dealings, and I keep saying this, that this House is not the Supreme Court, it is not the High Court, it is not the Court of Appeal. We must always look at the spirit of the law in as much as we look at the letter of the law. Mr. Speaker, this money was meant to go towards counties and regions that have been as a result of government policy, and the most famous being the sessional paper number 10 of 1965. Mr. Speaker, there is, and I've seen some of my colleagues who sat in the National Assembly, and I'm glad that they're now here to see the reality of some of the decisions that they made. Let us be honest to the nation. It got to a point where everyone wanted to get a piece of this money. We moved from the original marginalized counties of 14, and today they are 34. We argued that there were pockets of deprivation everywhere. Mr. Speaker, it was argued that even if you went to Westlands constituency and went to that ward where Runda is, that there's a slum called Githogoro, and therefore there is deprivation there, and as a result, Westlands should also be able to get part of the Equalization Fund. And Mr. Speaker, I see the Senator for Nairobi is very, very excited. You'd get an area like Karen where there's a lot of wealth, and there's some pocket of deprivation, and you take the money that was supposed to go to Turkana, the money was supposed to go to Mandera and Marsabit and Baringo and such places, and bring it to Nairobi or bring it to Nyeri. Mr. Speaker, we lost it when we made the argument that this money should not go through the devolved structures, and it should go through the structures of the provincial administration, which, if we are honest with ourselves, has no place in Kenya's political and administrative architecture, because we made a commitment as a country that the system of provincial administration that was meant to control and tame and contain black Africans, that system needed to have been reviewed and overhauled with the advent of devolution. What did we do? We took the county commissioner and put him right at the center of decision making in deciding on projects and implementing projects under the Equalization Fund. To make it worse, Mr. Speaker, even we, the senators, we legislated ourselves out of this matter, because at the county level, the chair of the committee that determines the projects is a county commissioner. Then you'll have the CEC finance for the county. Then you'll have the chairs of CDF, the CDF fund managers. In my county, I've got 8 CDF funds, so 8 of them will be sitting there. Then there'll be one person representing the county assembly, and then there'll be technical people from ministries. Mr. Speaker, this was absurd. And we made arguments that county governments are just thieves eating money, that we should not put additional money to them. Mr. Speaker, we have a deficit of trust in this country. If we think that the people we have in counties are thieves, why do we keep voting them back? Why can't we kick them out of office? There are a lot of instruments we have in the Constitution and various laws. We cannot keep making legislation on the basis of suspicion. This House should not sit aside and watch devolution, the structures of devolution and county governments dismantled, because sometimes if I see Captain Roba has bought a new car, I start thinking that he has bought that new car from Dora or from Kara, not knowing that Captain Roba receives a salary of 1 million shillings and is capable of buying a new car. Mr. Speaker, we made a mistake. And Mr. Speaker, I've just been talking to the then chair of the Delegated Legislation Committee, Senator Faki. The National Treasury made a commitment to this House that please pass these regulations, let us unlock funding to the marginalized areas, we will come back and amend the regulations. Mr. Speaker, those regulations have not been amended today. Where is the National Treasury? The chairman of Delegated Legislation Committee, Senator Mofaya, you must demand from the National Treasury to bring in the amendments that they promised. And Mr. Speaker, for this, we are all equally guilty, because this came in the heat of the campaigns. And some of us thought we would be in government so that we could change these things once we're in government. Now I challenge those who got into government through the back door and through windows. Can you now amend those regulations, because you stridently stood on the floor of this House saying that those regulations should not pass? Mr. Speaker, the sunset to this particular provision is fast approaching. And let us be bold enough to come up with legislation to extend the duration for this financing. But let us not use that as a window to bring forward the 13 other counties that are not included here. The other counties have got money through the DORA, through the KARA that this Senate appropriates every other year. Let us not mix things. Why is Turkana not the richest county in this country, Mr. Speaker? As Senator Lomenen had said
Senator
earlier...
Boni, what is your point of order?
Mr. Speaker,
I rise on standing order number 105. Mr. Speaker, did you hear the distinguished senator from Homa Bay allege that we got our way into government through the back door? Mr. Speaker, under standing order number 105, he has the responsibility to demonstrate the factuality of what he's stating. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, he owes us in government and Kenyans who voted for us overwhelmingly an apology and a withdrawal of that statement.
Senator Kajwang, you heard that.
Mr. Speaker,
substantiate the comments made.
The Constitution talks of 47 plus 1 government. We have 1 national government and 47 county governments. When I talked about the government, I don't know why Senator Halwale is jittery. I don't mean that government that he's holding brief for. It might as well be a government in Homa Bay or a government in Migori. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Senator Okech is advising me to use a proverb that is a bit unparliamentary. But it says in my language that the person who fouls the air is always the first to start a fight. And so Senator Kalwale might be guilty of something. Mr. Speaker, I was talking about the sunset to this particular provision. Let us be bold to extend it. Let us be bold to review the regulations. Let us be bold to review the policy. Mr. Speaker, it was said on the floor of this House, and I know some of the characters who work within this space, because some of them have gone to school with them, and sometimes they inform me informally, that the development of this next marginalization policy is going on. And CRA is going around to the counties. And they are visiting counties without the knowledge of county governments, without the knowledge of senators who are supposed to represent those counties. I think we must call the National Treasury and the Equalization Fund Committee to order, that their of the next policy alongside the CRA must be one that is consultative, must be one that involves the county governments, the county governors, and the representatives and defenders of counties, which in this case are the members of the Senate, as well as the members of the National Assembly, who represents the interests of the people in Parliament. Mr. Speaker, finally on sessional paper number 10 of 1965, it is not far-fetched when the senator for Turkana says that in future, Kenya is going to rely on the northern frontier for its wealth. It was not too long ago when the collapse of great civilizations like Persia, when the collapse of great cities like Baghdad and Damascus, and power shifted to what we call the global West, these areas were seen as places that offered no promise except nomads and camels and lots of sand. Mr. Speaker, when the British discovered oil in Saudi Arabia and the British incorporated British Petroleum, Mr. Speaker, Saudi Arabia suddenly became important. Baghdad again became important. Damascus became important. That part of the world, which was formerly a great civilization, just like Turkana, where humankind started. Mr. Speaker, when we find fossils in Turkana, it tells you that Turkana was a seat of a great ancient civilization. It shall come to pass that this country will start looking up north. Today we think the North offers nothing but violence. We think the North offers nothing but poverty. We think when our children from the North go to schools in Kiambu, we tell them to go back to their counties, as if some counties are more important than the other. We assume that the money that goes to counties is money that comes from certain communities or comes from certain business people. Mr. Speaker, the news that should go to those people who are peddling division, sowing discord, saying that the children of parents from Northeastern, from Turkana, from Mandera, from Marsabit should not be seen in Kiambu, should not be seen in Nairobi, should not be seen in Nakuru. Mr. Speaker, these are the people who are out to destroy this great nation called Kenya. And when Kenya is destroyed, and the areas that were developed as a result of sessional paper number 10, Mr. Speaker, cannot thrive if there's no peace. Because we provide services, We provide agriculture. We are in real estate. Things that cannot thrive when things go south the way they are going south in Sudan. Mr. Speaker, when those guys were telling our children not to study in schools in specific counties, when they split and when they destroy this country, the people of the north, they will know how to defend themselves with AK-47s. The people of the north, because they are used to adversity and hardship, Mr. Speaker, finally they will extract the oil that lies under that soil, the water that lies in Turkana. Mr. Speaker, all I'm calling for is a government that looks at the big picture. All I'm calling for is a government that revisits and revises the injustices of the past. Mr. Speaker, all I'm calling for is a better definition of bottom-up. Bottom-up not being seen as stealing money from the poor to the pockets of the rich. Bottom-up meaning that the marginalized areas must be prioritized in development and planning Senator. In this republic.
Mr. Speaker, I write at the pain of again asking that you request the Senator of Homa Bay to withdraw and apologize for his xenophobic remarks about Kiambu County. Mr. Speaker, we are painfully constructing a republic called Kenya. I know many children who are not Kikuyus, who are at Alliance Boys, Alliance Girls, Loreto, Mangu High School, name it, and there has never been a single report where any of the children has been attacked in school. In fact, my children go to those schools. If you have facts to demonstrate that somebody is marginalizing children from outside Kiambu, tackle them. If you don't, we want the peace to continue in those schools, and could you please withdraw and apologize? Which video?
Mr. Speaker, Senator Khalwale has been in this parliament long enough to reflect on rulings that have been made in the past. Mr. Speaker, even though it is possible for me to bring evidence to support what I have said, I will go by the decision of a speaker who is very prodigious in terms of his decisions. He said, you do not substantiate the obvious. Mr. Speaker, what I've said is in the public domain, but if Senator Khalwale feels aggrieved, I withdraw and substitute Homa Bay in the place of Kiambu. I hope that will make him feel happy, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, let us pass this bill, but please, the chairs of finance, the chairs of delegated legislation committee, and the communities that were the true beneficiaries of this money, let us go back and make sure we right the wrongs that have been committed in the past 5 years by denying the true recipients of this money and sending money to places where, if they put more effort to collect on-source revenue and if they use devolved funds better, they would be able to get faster results as opposed to our brothers from the north. Our brothers from the north and those who have been forgotten, left out as a result of sessional paper number 65, you shall get justice. And I can tell you without doubt or fear that if Raila Odinga was a president of Kenya, the conversation today would be different. You will not be begging. You will not be begging for...
Senator Kajwang, thank you. It's honorable members, let's be in order. Honorable members, Senator Okech, let's be orderly. Senator Gloria, let us be orderly. It is now 5:30 p.m., honorable members. Earlier on, there was an appointed time following a motion moved by Senator Muma, understanding order 37 to discuss a definite matter of national importance. I will ask the mover to take her 10 minutes to move and speak to the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, colleagues, for supporting this motion. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the motion that pursuant to Standing Order 37, the Senate do now adjourn to discuss a definite matter of urgent national importance, namely the discovery of mass graves thought to be those of Pastor Paul Mackenzie's followers, who purportedly died of starvation as part of the religious conviction prevailing in Shakahola village, Kilifi County, since 20th April 2023. Mr. Speaker, I think this matter is still live in this country. And Mr. Speaker, I thought to bring this motion because I think we share in a collective shame that we could have a cult running in this country for up to 20 years. And Mr. Speaker, that it has ended up with a tragedy of the magnitude that we are being told. Mr. Speaker, the case is still unfolding. Apparently, we now have 83 bodies that have been exhumed, Mr. Speaker, and I'm being told 89 because I know the operations are still on. Mr. Speaker, the right to life is the number one right, is the primary right without which all other rights cannot be enjoyed. Mr. Speaker, when people are killed through starvation, the freedom from torture, cruel, inhuman and degrading treatment is lost, Mr. Speaker. When that is meted upon children who have no right or cannot express themselves in terms of choosing a religion or an opinion, Mr. Speaker, that is unacceptable. Mr. Speaker, the story of the cult in Malindi, the story of Mr. Paul Mackenzie and the wife happened in Malindi, but it is a national disaster because those affected are not just people from Malindi. Those affected come from various areas, including Western Kenya, Kisii, Luo Nyanza, Nairobi, and other regions. Mr. Speaker, it is perplexing that we have a country that has security forces. We have a country that has a county security committee. But for 20 years, we have allowed this to happen. Mr. Speaker, the so-called Pastor Mackenzie is a public figure that has been appearing even in some of the presidential campaigns. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to accuse anybody, but all I'm saying, it's a collective shame that we could have somebody like that passing and getting away with what he has actually gotten away, in my view, because those lives can never be recovered, even if he was to be shot, even if he was to be mutilated in public, it will never recover those lives that we have lost. Mr. Speaker, commenting on religion in this country is an abomination. The religious organizations sometimes make it difficult to point out at any issue that is of concern. And that has made everybody allow cults to come up, people to come up, set up any so-called church or religious organization that extort poor people of money, that purport to have miraculous methods of disease, that prohibit children from going to school, that prohibit people from going to hospital. And Mr. Speaker, we continue to let them be, and yet the right to education is in the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, Article 53 provides for compulsory primary education for every child. So how we could have children claiming publicly that they are not going to school and nobody does anything about it is something that is not acceptable. I hope I have my 10 minutes. Mr. Speaker,
As we move, I want to ask the question, why did this happen? The county governments, particularly governors, are never involved in county security committees. Beyond what the police are doing and the investigation teams are doing, Mr. Speaker, I think this House needs to come up with a policy decision that can county governments participating in local security issues. Mr. Speaker, if there was investigation that actually pointed out to funny decisions or funny things happening out, and a county governor was on that committee, the matter would not have reached where it has reached. Mr. Speaker, even as I say so, county governments have administrative officers, ward administrative officers, village administrative officers. The national government is supposed to have chiefs and sub-chiefs. Mr. Speaker, how did this happen without anybody picking it out? Mr. Speaker, county governments have CHVs, community health workers, work in every house in this country, every house. How did they not ever pick what was happening in Shakahola? Mr. Speaker, we need to ask questions beyond what the police are doing. We need to get back to the policy level to find out whether we need to regulate religious organizations in this country and to stop being intimidated by their leaders who do not want to be regulated. I think this is a matter of life, and as a House we need to rise up and be counted. And I request that something urgent be done by this House as a Senate. And as I remain with my 2 or so minutes, I want to invite Senator Mazayo from Kilifi to come and second this mission. I support.
Asante Bwana Spika. Pia vile vile asante dadangu kwa kuniambia mimi nije niunge mkono. Bwana Spika, kitu cha kwanza ningependelea kusema ni kwamba uongozi wa dini ndani ya Kenya unaruhusiwa. Na vile vile katika maeneo yale ninayotoka kuna kanisa la Good News International ambalo linaongozwa na Pastor Paul Mackenzie Ntenge. Bwana Spika, unaweza kuona kulinganisha na sheria zetu za dini ni kwamba mtu yoyote anaweza kuingia katika kanisa lolote analotaka kuomba na akaomba Mwenyezi Mungu. Lakini hivi majuzi tumeona ya kwamba tumeweza kupoteza kufikia hivi sasa watu zaidi ya 86. Bwana Spika, hawa watu wamepotea, wamekufa wakiwa katika kaunti ya Kilifi. Ni jambo la kusikitisha Bwana Spika ya kwamba Wakenya poteza maisha yao kwa sababu ya kiongozi wa dini. Jambo la kusikitisha Bwana Spika, nikianza nalo ni kwamba tulipoanza mambo ya ugatuzi, tulichokosea zaidi ni kwamba hatukuweza kuweka mtu kama governor kuketi ndani ya ile security committee. Bwana Spika, huyu Mackenzie amekuwa ndani ya Kilifi County zaidi ya miaka 16. Na hii dini yake imekuwa ikiendelea ndani ya Kilifi County zaidi ya miaka 16, Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, huyu ni mtu ambaye anajulikana sana na amekuwa akizunguka kila mahali. Lakini hivi juzi vilivyogonga habari ni kwamba alianza na msimu wake au kwamba watoto wasifanye mitihani. Na security inaona. Baadaye watu walipopiga kelele akashikwa akapelekwa kotini. Akaachiliwa na shilingi 10,000. Akaja tena akashikwa kwa sababu alisema sio kufanya mtihani peke yake, lakini pia watu waanze mambo ya fasting. Lakini utakuja kuona bwana Spika, kufikia mawiki yale yamekwisha, alianza yale mambo ya kwamba watu wanaweza kukosa kula chakula, kosa kula maji, wala kukosa kujisaidia kwa njia yoyote, kwa sababu dini yake nasema ukienda huko unaenda kukutana na Yesu.
Jipatie raha na Go TV.
I just want to go home.
Furahia local shows kibao virahisi na Go TV. Furahia movies na series motomoto za majuu, ujienjoy kabisa. Furahia makatoons na content noma ya kubambisha. Furahia matimu zako za La Liga, Serie A na ligi zingine mob. Upgrade to Go TV Super leo ili ufurahie more than 70 quality channels kwa bei poa. Go TV, love it.
Ni kubwa, ni mingi, ni tamu, ni yako na ni moto.
Tumengojea sana show ya Kikenya ambayo inatuelewa na inatujali na pia inajumuika nasi katika magumu ya maisha.
Guess what? We have it. The Lotto Moto Show! Uko na uwezo wa kujishindia hadi 2 million Kenyan shillings kupitia draw yetu popote unapotutazama.
Na tuko na haja ya kusikia story na magumu unayoyapitia. Tutakuita kwenye show na tutarahisisha mahali.
Nafasi za wageni watatu zipo katika kila show ambao wanajipatia fursa ya kujichagulia sanduku moja kati ya 12. Kila sanduku liko na zawadi kem na za kipekee, with lots of fun, lots of prizes and money. Lotto Moto, only on KBC.
Buda, tuko na mgala wako hapa.
Who the hell are you?
Tunataka kupiga exchange. Kwa hiyo prisoner mko naye hapo na wewe mgala.
Prisoner mgani unaongea kuhusu nini?
Lola. Uko sawa?
Niko sawa. Ni uchungu sijui imetoka wapi.
Lola. Uko sawa je, unapiga nduru? Nini mbaya?
Unapa kuno Zari. Twende Zari. Zari. Unapa kuno Zari.
مياد أوغاتي عدتي شيء الكيغا.
نعم.
وحربا إني قثان.
زاري.
وحربا إني وهذا الإنتان. ningekuwa